Chapter 12:24. I can't make any conclusions about you and Anchi. Anchi is a good person, but it still depends on whether fate has brought you together. What if, as you said, Anchi actually likes someone else? Zishi, your most important task right now is to take care of Xingxia. As for everything else, just let it happen naturally. After all, you can't force it. By the way, I know that my son is hurt. After being lied to for 4 years, who wouldn't feel resentful? But Mo Zishi did not say a word. He simply hugged his mother like he wanted to enjoy his mother's embrace before he grew up. Mom, I really miss the carefree days I used to have with Zichin. But you've grown up and you're a father now, Tongning comforted. That's enough. Go see your son. As for Anchi, when you have time, invite her over for dinner. At least that way you can get closer to her. Mo Zishi moved away from Tongning's embrace and nodded his head. Okay, Mom. Afterwards, Mo Zishi stood up, walked out of his room and knocked on Mo Zian's door. As soon as he saw her carrying his son out, he immediately reached out and received him in his arms. Xingxia is such a good boy. He's following Auntie without crying at all. Mo Zishi looked at his son as he picked up a familiar toy from the sofa and placed it in his hands. Xingxia, call me Daddy. Daddy, no. It's Daddy. He's never called me that before. He'll do it after a few more times. Mo Zian laughed. Honestly, with little Xingxia around, I don't even want to go to work anymore. I want to go buy things for little Xingxia. I want to buy him lots of toys and clothes so he can dress up like a handsome boy. Seeing this, Mo Zishi sighed. Thank you, sis. We're family. There's no need to thank me, Mo Zishi said before he planted another kiss on little Xingxia's cheek. After Mo Zian left, Mo Zishi learned from Tongning how to mix milk powder for his son. But, just as he received a bottle of milk, he received a phone call from his comrade. Zishi, you might need to return to the army. Chun Jingrong has committed suicide. Is she okay? He has been rescued and is now in the affiliated hospital. After Mo Zishi hung up the phone, he thought for a moment. He originally wanted to rush over, but he remembered that Yao Anchi was at the hospital and she was currently working in the ER. Although she wasn't at work, he still calmed down. He didn't think that he had anything to do with Chun Jingrong. So, he gave Chun Jingrong's father a phone call and told him to look after his daughter at the military base. He did not want to add unnecessary fetters to both sides, which would only hurt more people. Seeing his expression, Tongning could tell he was feeling guilty, so she suggested, "Why don't we get Mother to help you? Mom, how could I let you worry about me? I think it's best if Mother shows up for something like this." If the Mo family didn't express their sympathy, then Mo Zishi would have no way of showing his face in the military. But if Mo Zishi personally showed up, then he would never be able to settle things with the other party. In that case, he could only think of a compromise. Mom, I'm sorry. What are you apologizing for? We are a family. Apart from this, Tongning felt it was necessary for her to meet with Mo Zishi's ex-girlfriend. For her to lie to the man she loved for 4 years, it was obvious that she was capable of doing things like taking drugs or doing something even more serious. Since that was the case, it was best for her to understand the situation first. If anything unexpected happened, she would have to deal with it. Mo Zishi spent the entire morning learning how to breastfeed his child. He also looked up a lot of parenting information online. He had missed out on too much in the past, so he was caught off guard by the fact that he had to make up for it. So, it didn't take long before Tongning set out from home. Of course, she didn't tell Mo Ting that she was going. Otherwise, the man would be heartbroken again. Soon, Tongning arrived at the military base hospital and quietly asked around to find out which hospital room Chun Jingrong was in. Although she was already wearing a mask, her temperament was still very easy to recognize. Are you the superstar, Tongning? May I know which hospital room Miss Chun Jingrong is in? Tongning asked patiently for a second time. The nurse was excited, but she quickly reacted and told her Chun Jingrong's room number. After thanking the nurse, Tongning headed over to Chun Jingrong's room with some nutritional supplements. At this time, the nurse was the only one present. Chun Jingrong's family was nowhere to be seen. Tongning quietly entered the room with the intention of waiting for Chun Jingrong to wake up. But, to her surprise, she ended up waking up. "Is this Zixi?" "I am Zixi's mother," Tongning replied gently as she removed her mask. "Hello, Auntie." "Zixi, isn't he coming?" "Miss Chun, Auntie came here today to make things clear to you. Zixi won't be coming because you've already broken up. If he comes, it will only complicate your relationship." After hearing this, Chun Jingrong's eyes filled with tears. "Auntie, can you tell Zixi that I know I was wrong and that I really don't want to break up with him? Child, I know that you have deep feelings for him, but you shouldn't have used such an extreme method to force him. You're being irresponsible towards your family," Tongning lectured. "Zixi may appear bright and cheerful, but he's very stubborn. Once he's decided on something, he's never looked back. That's why Auntie wants to tell you to move on and start afresh." Chun Jingrong's eyes dimmed. She had nothing to say to Tongning. She didn't want to give up on Zixi because it was too difficult. She even tried to die, but she couldn't do it. "I also want to have a little pride, but I'm not willing to give up. Auntie, please go home," Tongning sighed. From the look in Chun Jingrong's eyes, she could tell that this woman wasn't a kind person, and she wasn't going to give up so easily. If this woman found out about Yao Anqi and Xingzhe's existence, things would become very troublesome. Even though this woman was obviously in the wrong in the first place. But Tongning did not stay for long. She had no reason to stay in front of Chun Jingrong any longer. As long as she was here, she represented the Mo family. At least, her son wouldn't be in such a difficult position. Afterwards, Tongning headed over to Yao Anqi's home. According to Mo Zixi, Yao Anqi's home was like a nest. From the looks of it, because of Xingzhe's birth, she hadn't been living a good life. Tongning needed to think of a way for Yao Anqi to move into the Mo family home. That way, Xingzhe would have his parents by his side. Although she didn't know if her son and Yao Anqi were fated to be together, she still hoped that Xingzhe would have a complete family. So, she went to look for Yao Anqi behind Mo Zixi's back. "Madam, I'll go knock on the door first," Lu Che said. Chapter 12:25. Tongning nodded her head. A moment later, Yao Anqi opened the door. At this time, she was still wearing her white coat. "Auntie, do you mind if I take up a bit of your time?" Tongning asked. "No, I don't mind. It's just that my home is a mess." Tongning was not shy at all as she walked straight into the room and sat down on a chair. She then said to Yao Anqi, "I came to see you today without Zixi's knowledge. Auntie, have you decided to keep me away from the Mo family? Can leave. Do you think I'm that bad?" Tongning asked with a smile. "I'm not here to chase you away, nor am I here to give you money. I have no intention of breaking you and Xingzhe apart. On the contrary, I wanted to ask if you were willing to move to Hyatt Regency." After hearing this, Yao Anqi was stunned. "You, Xingzhe, and my son. This is a very strange fate. You must admit that since fate has dictated this way, then you should go with the flow. Most importantly, although our family can take good care of Xingzhe, a mother's place in our child's heart can never be replaced," Tongning said gently. "Our family doesn't care about family background. As long as a person is kind and cares about his family, we don't care about any other background. Auntie, you don't need to be considerate of me. I admit that I've been considerate of you. But, most importantly, I've been considerate of Xingzhe," Tongning interrupted. "I know you have a lot of pride. If you want to believe that rich families don't discriminate based on their family background, it may be a little difficult. But, in the Mo family, this is the case. I won't force you and my son to be together. If you think he's suitable, then you can try. If you don't think he's what you want, then let me know. If the time is right, we won't stand in your way. But I'm more than willing to believe that you won't find another partner for Xingzhe's sake, right?" Yao Anqi silently agreed. She didn't actually want a relationship, even though she once wished for a family. "Then, I hope you consider my words carefully. You are Xingzhe's mother and we want to protect you." After speaking, Tongning stood up from her chair. "I know you haven't rested for a long time. You can continue, I'm going to leave first." But with Tongning's words, would Yao Anqi still be able to sleep? Try it out with Mo Zishi? Wasn't there still a shadow in his heart? For years of relationship, although they had broken up, it was not something that could be broken just like that. However, these things were beyond her control, so she temporarily put aside her worries. After she recovered, she returned to the hospital. But as soon as she entered the hospital, she heard a piece of gossip. Chun Jingrong had taken medicine and committed suicide. Of course, she also heard that Tongning had visited Chun Jingrong at the hospital. But it seemed Tongning must have visited Chun Jingrong on behalf of the Mo family before coming to see her. Mo Zishi did not appear from the beginning to the end. Although everyone in the hospital was trying to guess the reason behind their change of heart, for Mo Zishi to be so heartless, it couldn't have been a small matter. Yao Anqi pretended not to hear anything as she returned to her post. As she was doing her rounds, she happened to pass by Chun Jingrong's room. But since Mo Zishi told her not to feel guilty, she wasn't going to be shackled anymore. After all, she knew that 4 years ago, Chun Jingrong pretended to be her and won Mo Zishi's love. But Yao Anqi's assistant remembered that Mo Zishi had previously asked about Yao Anqi. So she asked quietly, "Dr. Yao, what's your relationship with Major Mo? He previously asked me about you when you came over with Xingzhe." "We're not related," Yao Anqi immediately replied. "Oh, I thought. Don't speak recklessly in case you cause trouble." "I know," the nurse quickly replied. "I won't speak recklessly." Mo Zishi had no idea that Tongning had gone to see Yao Anqi, nor did he know that Yao Anqi had returned to work after originally planning to take a break. So, while Xingzhe was asleep, he gave Yao Anqi a phone call. "Am I disturbing you?" "No," Yao Anqi replied. "The hospital isn't too busy today. Do you really think you're made of steel? You're going back to work again." "I'm done resting," Yao Anqi replied calmly. "Chun Jingrong is currently staying at our hospital." "I know. Don't you plan to come and see her? Do you think I'm heartless?" Mo Zishi unexpectedly asked Yao Anqi. After all, it was a 4-year relationship. If I broke it off just like that, even if she took medicine, I wouldn't show my face. "Since you're going to break it off, why bother with so many things?" To his surprise, Yao Anqi understood him. "Since you said you didn't break up because of me, then I'm sure you have your own plans for not coming to the hospital. Anqi, come over to my place for dinner tonight. We can talk about Xingzhe. You should meet him and give him a hug." "Okay." Yao Anqi nodded. It wasn't that she hadn't considered Tongning's suggestion, but she had her own worries and concerns. Although she met the Mo family the last time, she still didn't know them well enough. So, regardless of whether she entered the Mo family or not, she needed to make sure that no one had ill intentions towards Xingzhe. At this time, the hospital suddenly erupted in a commotion. Soon, a man stormed towards Yao Anqi with a wooden stick in his hand and swung it at Yao Anqi's head. "You're a quack, Dr. Yao," a nurse screamed. Her voice was so loud that even Mo Zishi could hear it. "Anqi? Anqi? What happened?" But Yao Anqi had already hung up. This was a medical disturbance. Luckily, the wooden stick wasn't heavy and the man didn't use his full strength. So, although it hurt, it wasn't unbearable. "Dr. Yao, are you okay?" The security immediately restrained the man and the nurse quickly ran over to help him up. But Yao Anqi's head had been smashed and she lay unconscious in the nurse's arms. "Dr. Yao, Dr. Yao." Mo Zishi could tell that someone was causing trouble. But how was he supposed to go over? Afterwards, he called Yao Anqi's phone again. This time, the person who picked up was a nurse. The nurse thought it was Yao Anqi's family. "Anqi. Hello, this is the affiliated hospital. Dr. Yao has been smashed in the head and has fainted," the nurse immediately said. At this moment, Mo Zishi couldn't care about anything else. Yao Anqi had no other relatives, and now that something had happened, he didn't know what to do. So he couldn't stay at home and wait for news. Chapter 12:26. After Mo Zishi arrived at the hospital, he parked his car in the underground car park. However, he did not walk into the hospital openly. Instead, He stopped near Yao Anqi's office. She overheard some gossip and found out that Yao Anqi had a cut on her head. She was currently bandaging it and it wasn't serious. Mo Zishi relaxed and gave Yao Anqi a phone call. "Where are you?" "I'm resting in the office. I'll go home in a while." After such a huge incident, it wouldn't reflect well on the department. So the director gave Yao Anqi a few days off and told her to go home and rest. "Come to the underground car park," Mo Zishi said. Yao Anqi did not expect this man to personally make a trip here. After all, he didn't want to cause any trouble. But as soon as Yao Anqi saw him in the underground car park, she was shocked. "You? Get in the car," Mo Zishi said to her. "There are so many people passing by. Do you want others to see it?" Yao Anqi had no choice but to open Mo Zishi's car door, and the couple successfully left the hospital. However, Mo Zishi noticed that Yao Anqi's head was covered in bandages. "Did you sneak a peek at Sister Chun?" Yao Anqi asked innocently. Mo Zishi was stunned for a moment before he shook his head. "I specifically came to pick you up. I heard about the medical dispute over the phone, so I was worried." Yao Anqi also froze for a moment. "I thought, you think too much." He then led her towards Hyatt Regency. "We agreed that we were going to see Xingzhe, but my head injury. Did you think Xingzhe would understand at such a young age?" Mo Zishi asked. Yao Anqi remained silent and didn't reply. Just as Mo Zishi had said, Xingzhe still didn't understand why he was injured. When the time came, all she had to do was comfort him a little. However, Mo Zishi never expected that someone would see him at the hospital. Everyone assumed that he was there to see Chun Jingrong. After all, the incident between the two caused quite a stir at the military base. So, as soon as Chun Jingrong heard about this, she sat up in bed in excitement. "Zishi came to the hospital? Has Zishi been here before?" Papa Chun looked at his daughter's good-for-nothing appearance and was exasperated with her for not living up to his expectations. "It's already like this. Why do you still care whether he came or not?" "Dad, you know how much I love Zishi. I'll never marry anyone but him." "Even if you insist on marrying no one but him, you have to see if he's willing to marry you, right?" Father Chun scoffed. "Besides, you've already broken up. I will never allow anyone to humiliate my daughter over and over again." But Chun Jingrong didn't care what Father Chun thought. All she knew was that Mo Zishi had gone to the hospital, which meant he still couldn't let go of her. So, she immediately pulled out her phone and called Mo Zishi. However, she had no idea that Mo Zishi had already blacklisted her. Chun Jingrong did not give up, so she tried a few more times, but she still couldn't get through. "Daughter, listen to your father's advice. Don't associate with that man anymore." "Dad, as long as he still cares about me, I will never give up." After loving him for so many years, how could she give up so easily? Plus, she knew that Mo Zishi was about to propose to her. So, who was it that exposed her lie at a time like this? She really wanted to know. Mo Zishi had no idea that he had caused a huge stir in Chan Jingrong's heart. At that moment, he arrived at Hyatt Regency with Yao Anqi. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Xingzhe sitting on the carpet playing with his familiar toys. Meanwhile, Tongning stood to one side and prepared some snacks for him. "Auntie?" Tongning turned around and smiled. "Come take a look at your son." Yao Anqi walked over and carried Xingzhe in her arms. She then hugged him tightly and kissed his cheeks. "Mommy, Mommy." Seeing this, Mo Zishi could tell that the mother and son had a deep relationship. Tongning gestured for Mo Zishi to take the initiative and take care of the mother and son's feelings. After all, this was their second time at a place like this, so they were bound to feel uncomfortable. Tongning tried to ease Yao Anqi's nervousness. "What happened to your head?" "A patient caused a medical disturbance and got a little injured," Yao Anqi explained as she hugged her son. "In that case, you should stay at home and keep Xingzhe company. Treat it as a rest." After speaking, Tongning handed the keys to Yao Anqi. "You can come in whenever you want. Next time, you don't need to trouble our neighbors." "Auntie, I'm afraid this isn't a good idea." "Zishi, convince her." Tongning said before she handed the keys to Emozishi. Emozishi placed the keys in Yao Anshi's pocket. Take it, since my mom has already said it, she won't take it back. Yao Anshi did not say another word. She simply carried her son and followed Emozishi upstairs to look around his room. The room was currently filled with Xingzhe's belongings. It's a little messy. I haven't had time to tidy it up yet. Soon, the Emo family returned home one after another. First up was Emo Zian. This was her first time seeing Yao Anshi, so she greeted her warmly. Hello, sister-in-law. I'm not your sister-in-law. You will be very soon. Emo Zian winked at Emozishi. Big bro, you need to work hard. Sister-in-law still refuses to acknowledge your identity. That's what you get for bullying her in the past. Emozishi smiled and gestured for Emo Zian to stop. Don't make things difficult for Anshi. I know I was just joking. Don't be angry, Yao Jie. Xingzhe must have been holding you for a long time. Let me hold you for a while. I've been thinking about it all day, Emo Zian said as she stretched out her arms towards Yao Anshi. Before Yao Anshi could respond, Xingzhe also pounced into Emo Zian's arms. Auntie didn't dote on you for nothing. Yao Anshi felt comforted. She could tell that Emo Zian really liked Xingzhe. You two chat, I'll take Xingzhe downstairs to play. In reality, Yao Anshi wanted to create an opportunity for the two, but she had no idea that the two of them were actually quite bored. After losing their child, they didn't know what to say, especially since Yao Anshi was now certain that Emozishi had someone else in his heart. So, she was even more unwilling to talk about relationships with him. My family is very friendly. If you feel like you're being put in a difficult position, just tell me. They'll know how to restrain themselves. Yao Anshi nodded her head. Actually, no matter what, she still felt restrained. Plus, Emozishi had never seen her smile before. She was always cold and didn't want anyone to get close to her. The two of them had nothing to say to each other. Emozishi also felt a little awkward, so he suggested, let's go downstairs. Okay. Yao Anshi replied obediently. The two of them hadn't interacted much, so they hadn't had the chance to get used to each other. Plus, Yao Anshi was purposely avoiding him. Emozishi felt that the two of them needed time to get closer. Chapter 12:27. Yao Anshi stayed behind for dinner, but she did not say a word during dinner, unlike Emo Zian, who could talk non-stop. A family like this was actually quite heartwarming, but Yao Anshi did not feel like it belonged to her, so she kept her heart away from them. Tongning sensed Yao Anshi's distance, but she did not force her. After the first time, there was bound to be a second and third time. That was when the time came to change the way she viewed family. After dinner, Yao Anshi decided to head home. After all, her son had seen her and she had achieved her goal, so she couldn't stay at the Emo family home forever. Emozishi knew it was impossible to make her stay, so he volunteered, let me take you home. What do you mean by, let me take you home? You should take me home, Emo Zian lectured. Yao Anshi did not object. After saying goodbye to the Emo family, she followed behind Emozishi and left the Emo family home one after another. However, on the way home, Emozishi said his thoughts to Yao Anshi. I know you're still bothered by my relationship with Chun Jingrong. Perhaps you've never considered having anything to do with the Emo family. Anshi, you're a cold person, but I know you still want a family. Xingzhe needs a mother and I need a wife. Since that's the case, can you consider becoming my partner? I will work hard to forget about the past because I want Xingzhe to have a complete family. I can't guarantee that I'll fall in love with you soon, but at least I will be a responsible husband. Once I get married, I will be loyal to my wife for life. Of course, if you have other plans, just pretend that I didn't say anything tonight. But if you listen to me a little, can you open up your heart to me a little? I know you're going to say that I'm thinking this because of the child. That's not wrong. But who's to say that this is a bad start? 4 years ago, I thought Chen Jingrong was you and we missed out. But 4 years later, fate has presented itself again. Can you take this opportunity for Xingzhe's sake? I'm not going to say that I'm outstanding, but at least I have the right values. I'm positive. I don't have bad habits, and I think I'm an ideal partner. If you really want to find a partner, then consider me first, okay? Mozishi spoke very seriously, and his reasoning was very sufficient. Even a woman would not be able to reject such a proposal, right? Above all, Yao Anchi still felt that because she couldn't abort her child, she was restricting Mozishi's life. But now, not only did Mozishi not blame her, he even begged her to open up a little. How could she reject someone like this? But can she really get happiness? Because of this, Yao Anchi was very nervous. She was afraid that once she took the first step, it would be too late to stop. It didn't take long before the couple arrived at Yao Anchi's home. After escorting her back to her room, Mozishi finally relaxed. However, before he left, he said in seriousness to Yao Anchi, "I hope you can consider my suggestion." Yao Anchi froze for a few seconds before finally nodding her head. After all, Xingzhe was the biggest link between them. She was an orphan herself, so she actually hoped that Xingzhe would grow up under the care of his parents. His heart was suddenly in a mess. As soon as Chen Jingrong found out that Mozishi had gone to the hospital, she tried to find out where he was. She couldn't get in touch with Mozishi, but she still returned to work. She assumed that as soon as Mozishi showed up and explained everything to him, they would get back together. Even when she told her superiors, she told them that nothing was going on between her and Mozishi. They would get married. As soon as Mozishi's friends heard this, they were shocked. Did Mozishi secretly get back together with Chen Jingrong behind their backs? Because of this, one of Mozishi's friends gave Mozishi a phone call. "Did you go to the hospital?" "Yes." Mozishi replied straightforwardly as he knew what his friend was asking. "Did you get back together with Chen Jingrong?" "I didn't go to the hospital to see Chen Jingrong. I went to pick up Yao Anchi. Anchi was beaten up. You scared me to death. I thought you forgave Chen Jingrong. I bet the people at the hospital thought you went to see Chen Jingrong when they saw you. Chen Jingrong believed you and now thinks she has a chance to get back together with you. So she's telling everyone that you've gotten back together." Mozishi's friend sighed and felt bad for Mozishi. He had a feeling that Chen Jingrong wouldn't stop clinging to him. On the other side, Mozishi fell silent. "What do you plan to do now? If you plan to be with Yao Anchi, you can't let Chen Jingrong continue like this." "I'll apply for a transfer," Mozishi replied. "I don't want to get tangled up in things like this." "Fine, now that things have gotten to this point, there's nothing you can do. But if you can apply for a transfer, what about Yao Anchi?" "I need to ask Anchi for her opinion. After all, I can't force her," Mozishi replied. "If Anchi doesn't want to leave, then I'll try my best not to appear at the hospital." "That's fine. Do as you see fit." I don't know how to describe Chen Jingrong anymore. He felt both pitiful and shameless. Clingy. Didn't she know what she had done? Why couldn't they set each other free? After hanging up the phone with his comrade, Mozishi fell into deep thought. It seemed he would have to leave the military soon, even though he already knew this day would come. So, the next morning, Mozishi called his superior and asked for a transfer. As soon as his superior heard this, he was stunned. After all, Mozishi was his beloved general. How could he bear to let him go? "Didn't Jingrong say that you guys made up? What are you trying to do now?" "Chief, you know that I already have a child. How could I possibly reconcile with her?" Mozishi replied. "I need to act like a father. Since you didn't plan to, why did you go to the hospital?" "I didn't go to the hospital to see Chen Jingrong. I went to pick up Angie. Angie's head was smashed," Mozishi explained. In other words, it was a misunderstanding. His superior sighed. "It's hard for an upright official to settle a family dispute. So I can't say much about your matter. Think about it carefully. You have to know what it means to be transferred." "I'm sorry, Chief. I've let you down." Mozishi apologized sincerely. He was well aware of who helped him get to where he was today. "Forget it. I can understand why you're doing this." Only by distancing himself from Chen Jingrong could the two of them be completely cut off. Mozishi needed to give Yao Anchi and himself an explanation. "Zishi, from now on, come back and visit us often. Emozishi did not say a word. All he heard was a sigh from his superior. Chapter 12:28. I hope the chief can keep this a secret. How about this? I'll contact my brother and see if I can transfer you to him. Let me tell you, my brother is amazing. He's the captain of the top special forces in the country. Everything will depend on your luck. Thank you, Chief. After all, they were teacher and student, so apart from thanking him, Emozishi had nothing else to say. As for Chun Jingrong, she was going to put on a one-woman show. As soon as his family found out that Emozishi was going to be transferred, they all supported him. Especially Emozian. Big bro, this is what I admire about you. You always do what you say and never hesitate over something like this. In that case, have you asked Anchi? Is she willing to leave with you? Tongning asked. If Anchi isn't willing, don't force her. As long as you don't appear at the hospital as often, that's fine. I understand, Mom. Also, I want to find another place to live. Anchi might not be used to being around so many people, and I want to find a place that's close to the special forces so I can take care of the mother and son. After hearing this, Tongning thought for a moment and nodded her head. You decide for yourself, but you need to convince Anchi to move in. Don't worry, I'm confident that I can do it. Before he went to the special forces, Emozishi needed to collect some information from the military. After all, it wasn't easy to get into the special forces. One had to go through a strict test and selection process. But Emozishi still wanted to give it a try. On the day he returned to the military base, Emozishi did not tell anyone and avoided everyone's attention. After receiving the recommendation letter from the chief, he simply went to see a few of his friends to say goodbye. I know I can't stop you. Let's meet up outside. I'm so angry that I can't even stay at the military base because of that bitch. But if I was in her shoes, I would have no choice but to do this. Chun Jingrong is so scary. Zishi should hide from her. He's already said and done everything he could. What else does she want? Fantasizing on the side. It's really an eye-opener for me. Zishi smiled and did not respond to Chun Jingrong's question. He simply hugged his friends and left. Afterwards, Zishi drove over to Yao Anchi's home and knocked on the door. Seeing that she was tidying up, he sat down on the sofa and said, I've applied for a transfer. What? Yao Anchi didn't quite understand. I said, I've already left the military base. Angie, I'm going to report to the special forces soon. Before that, I want to ask if you want to leave the hospital. Because I want to find a place to stay near the special forces and bring you and Xingzhe over. Yao Anchi was stunned for a moment before she replied, I haven't considered leaving the hospital yet. I guess so. Emozishi nodded his head. But you're going to have to move, right? I have decided to bring Xingzhe over and take care of him ourselves. We will hire a reliable nanny to take care of him when we are busy. You don't have to worry about the awkwardness at home. I live in the army. Without your permission, I won't stay at home. Of course, Yao Anchi wanted to personally take care of Xingzhe. After all, the Mo family had their own matters to attend to. But she was in the hospital and too busy. If she could find a helper, she was more than willing to take care of her son herself. This was where Emozishi's cunning came from. Yao Anchi's current residence could barely accommodate one adult and one child. There was no room for anyone else. Even if it was for Xingzhe's sake, Yao Anchi would still agree. Plus, she was seriously considering Emozishi's suggestion the day before. If she really had to choose a husband, she would definitely choose her son's father. So, she might as well give it a try. Since you haven't said anything, I'll take that as a yes. After Yao Anchi finished packing her things, she nodded her head. You've already arranged everything. Can't be picky. Okay. I'll find a place to live as soon as possible and pick you up. However, up until this point, Yao Anchi had only spoken to Emozishi as a mother. She had never spoken to him from a woman's point of view. It seemed she had no intention of going that deep. Luckily, Emozishi understood her caution. After all, he was a man that had just broken up with his girlfriend. Before heading to the special forces, Emozishi found a suitable house nearby. It was quiet and had good security. It was perfect for his family of 3. It didn't take long before Emozishi found a house and gave Yao Anchi the address. He also told her to pack her things when she had time so that he could pick them up. Apart from this, Emozishi also found a nanny. This nanny was 1 in 100. She had already retired, but she had nothing to do at home, so she continued to work as a nanny. The move seemed to be going smoothly, but it didn't take long before Chun Jingrong heard from her comrades that Emozishi had applied for a transfer. Because of this, she specifically went to look for her superior to verify the information. Her superior tried to beat around the bush, but in the end, she couldn't help but tell Chun Jingrong the truth. Jingrong, let Emozishi go. Just pretend that the 2 of you weren't meant to be together. Since he doesn't want to get back together with me, why did he go to the hospital to show concern for me? He didn't go to the hospital to see you. Either way, don't overthink it, her superior comforted. Her superior comforted her. Find a better man. I believe that you will live a happier life. Chun Jingrong was in disbelief. Everything was fine. Why did things suddenly change? If he didn't go to the hospital to see me, then who was he going to see? Either way, there's only one person. Chun Jingrong did not say a word. After leaving her superior's office, she took the opportunity to look at the surveillance footage from that day. She wanted to know why Emozishi went to the hospital. But the footage showed that Emozishi only stood there for a short while before he left. If he didn't show concern for her, then what was it for? Afterwards, Chun Jingrong found the car that Emozishi left in. There was another woman in the car. As for who it was too dark in the underground parking lot, so she couldn't see clearly. Was this the reason why Emozishi broke up with her? Was it because of this woman? At that moment, Chun Jingrong's chest was filled with anger. Emozishi broke up with her because he had a change of heart. Why did he bring up what happened 4 years ago? He simply wanted to find an excuse to break up with her. No, she had to find out where this woman came from. Chapter 12:29. Because of this, Chun Jingrong frequently visited the hospital and used psychological intervention as an excuse to get to know a lot of young nurses. She wanted to hear some gossip, but the only person that knew that Emozishi had visited Yao Anchi was Yao Anchi's assistant. So, after a few days of hard work, she found nothing. Yao Anchi had been busy packing for the past 2 days because she was about to move into her new home. Therefore, he did not participate in the gossip that the nurses were talking about recently. Dr. Yao, you've been getting off work early recently. Because I'm moving house soon, Yao Anchi replied. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Have a good rest, Dr. Yao. The assistant smiled at her. Yao Anchi knew that over the past few days, everyone inside and outside of the hospital was talking about Chun Jingrong and Emozishi, because Chun Jingrong had been visiting frequently for psychological intervention. But no one could have guessed that Emozishi and Yao Anchi had something to do with each other. After Yao Anchi kept a low profile and rarely interacted with others, especially after giving birth to Xingzhe, she paid extra attention to her privacy. So not many people in the hospital knew about her situation. When Yao Anchi heard that Chun Jingrong was still clinging onto the father of the child, she didn't feel much. After all, she could understand how a couple would react when they had just separated. But it had to be said that Emozishi really did it. He didn't care about it at all. After work, Yao Anchi returned home as usual. Today, Mozishi was coming over to help her move her things. So as soon as she got off work, she left in a hurry. By the time she returned home, Emozishi was already waiting outside with his car. Yao Anchi didn't tell Emozishi about the situation at the hospital because she didn't want to burden him. As soon as Emozishi walked in through the front door, he noticed Yao Anchi had already packed up all the bedding. He was a little amused. There's everything over there. You didn't need to prepare this. All you needed to do was bring some clothes. I just think it's a pity, Yao Anchi replied. Also, you look too plain. From now on, we'll take care of Xingzhe together. If you have time, take care of yourself and dress yourself up. After speaking, Emozishi gestured to Yao Anchi. I'll take everything that Xingzhe is familiar with. You can buy everything new. That's settled then. After making his decision, Zishi took Yao Anchi to the place he had arranged for the mother and son. He knew that Yao Anchi wouldn't want to live in a big villa, so this small courtyard wasn't luxurious at all. It looked simple and elegant, making Yao Anchi feel a lot more relaxed. At least, she could tell that Zishi had put in a lot of effort. What do you need at home? If you like it, feel free to buy it. This is the nanny's contact number. You can contact her when you need it. I will pick up Xingzhe from the Mo family home tomorrow morning. Are you afraid of staying here alone tonight? Zishi asked. I'm not afraid, but you haven't joined the special forces yet. Where are you going to sleep? I'm going out to meet a few comrades. It's nearby. Do you want to come with me? Zishi replied as he picked up his jacket. According to Yao Anchi's personality, she was definitely afraid of trouble. But, seeing how much effort Zishi was putting in, she felt like she should do something too, so she replied, okay. Zishi was a little surprised. He thought he had heard wrong. He then smiled and said to Yao Anchi, since you're going to dinner, you should get changed, right? You can't just wear a white coat and people will think that you're going to save lives. In that case, wait for a moment. Wait for what? We're going out to buy a new set. Your clothes are still in the old house. I didn't bring them with me. After speaking, Zishi led Yao Anchi out the door. Yao Anchi's personality was cold and she was always adaptable to the situation. Zishi could sense that she didn't like to fight for things. She was also calm and gentle like a chrysanthemum flower. It didn't take long before the two of them arrived at the meeting place. When they saw Yao Anchi, they looked at each other in confusion. Zishi, you're not bad. You've already brought your little sister-in-law out. Anchi is a shy person. Be more appropriate. Zishi instructed. If you have a problem, come at me. Speaking of which, the fate between the two of you is perfect. I like people like Dr. Yao. Women are naturally feminine. Yao Anchi watched as Zishi drank and chatted with his friends. Zishi was very considerate of her feelings. Whenever his friends tried to make things difficult for him, he would do his best to stop them. In fact, he would even smile at her from time to time. Yao Anchi didn't talk much and was very quiet. But Zishi's friends couldn't help but say, bro, let me tell you, you found the right person this time. Look at Dr. Yao. She's sitting quietly by your side like a good wife. Isn't that great? Duodeng, you're right. Zishi allowed them to joke around without explaining. After all, as long as everyone was happy, it was fine. However, Yao Anchi had no idea that Zishi had drunk so much that by the time the dinner was over, he was already unconscious. Let's have another drink. Seeing that Zishi was drunk, his friends said to Yao Anchi, sister-in-law, they're older than Zishi and I'm younger than him. Please don't mind us messing around. It's fine. Sister-in-law, Zishi really cares about his family. As you know, everyone from the Mo family is outstanding. So, please don't mind what happened between Zishi and Qin Jingrong in the past. For Zishi, it's already in the past. Since he's given up, he won't continue to be with her. Don't worry about that. By the way, you've worked hard over the years. When Zishi talked to us about you, he was filled with guilt. He felt that you and your mother suffered a lot. I hope the two of you can be happy from now on. Actually, Yao Anchi and Zishi's relationship hadn't reached that point yet. But because they had a child together, it was natural for them to be seen as a couple. Yao Anchi did not explain as she held onto Zishi. After he got drunk, he didn't act ugly. He simply lay down and slept. Of course, Yao Anchi sighed. Zishi was indeed a good friend. Even in a situation like this, he still spoke up for him. From now on, I'll leave Zishi in your care. Yao Anchi nodded her head in a daze. Under the escort of her brothers, she returned to her new home. Originally, Zishi was supposed to return to Hyatt Regency to get some rest. But now that he was completely drunk, where else could he go? After returning home, Yao Anchi placed him on the sofa and headed into the kitchen to make soup to sober him up. After she was done, she returned to the living room to find Zishi sleeping soundly. Yao Anqi was well aware that her relationship with Immerse and Chun Jingrong couldn't be severed, but, it seemed, she had the right to pursue her own happiness. Chapter 12:30. The next morning, Immerse woke up on the sofa to find a freshly heated bowl of hangover soup on the table. He picked it up and drank it in one gulp. When he looked at home, Yao Anqi had already left for work. From the looks of it, she had already heated up the soup before she left. Immerse had promised to pick up Xingzhe from Hyatt Regency. So, after washing up in the bathroom, he immediately drove home. But, when she heard that Immerse wanted to take her son away, Immerse was extremely unwilling. "Why don't you give him to me? You and Yao Jie can have another child and I can have little Xingxing." Immerse truly liked Xingzhe, mainly because he was too obedient and too adorable. "No, I have to take Xingzhe away today. Bro, I'm doing this for your own good. Okay? Look, whenever Xingzhe comes home, Yao Jie's eyes will always be on our son. Who would want to look at an old man like you? I'm helping you create an opportunity. You're the only one who knows how to twist words. If you stay at home all day with Xingzhe, who's gonna manage Hai Rui? I'd be a fool if Dad tolerated you." Immerse's words hit the nail on the head. Although Emoting didn't say it out loud, the three of them had caused Tongning a lot of worry. So, because of this, she couldn't be stubborn anymore. "Okay, I'll give you back your son. But you need to bring him home often, okay?" Xingzhe clung onto Immerse. Although they had only known each other for a few days, Immerse took good care of her nephew. "Bro, you didn't even install a child seat in your car. How am I supposed to leave Xingzhe on your own? I'll drive you to Hai Rui when the time comes." Immerse couldn't bear to part with Xingzhe because Xingzhe kept calling out to him. Seeing how much she liked children, Immerse couldn't help but say, "Since you like children so much, you should have one of your own." "I don't like children, I only like little Xingxing. It's fate." Afterwards, the siblings took Xingzhe to Immerse's new home. Immerse looked around and noticed the blanket on the sofa that hadn't been tidied up. She immediately laughed. "Don't tell me you're still sleeping on the sofa. What else?" Immerse shrugged. "I have to say, big brother, you really deserve it. I hope Yao Jie can torture you as much as she wants. That would make me very happy." After speaking, Immerse kissed little Xingzhe a few more times before leaving reluctantly. Now, Immerse was left alone with his son. To make his son like him, Immerse patiently tried to communicate with Xingzhe. But it was normal for men to be slow in taking care of children. So he had no idea what Xingzhe liked or how he reacted. In the end, he ended up calling Yao Anqi for help. Yao Anqi had just finished a surgery. When she saw it was Immerse, she immediately picked up, "What's wrong? Are you still feeling unwell?" "No, how does Xingzhe react when he's hungry or sleepy? Tell me, I don't know what to do." It was his first time becoming a father, so he couldn't get used to it. That was because it was truly too miraculous. The blood flowing through this little thing's body was the same as his own blood. This sort of feeling caused him to feel extremely marvelous. When he's hungry, he'll stare at the bottle. When he's sleepy, he'll close his eyes and sleep. "No wonder. I understand now. I will wait for you to come back and save my life." When Yao Anqi heard this, she couldn't help but laugh. This surprised the assistant. "Dr. Yao, you're laughing." "Did I?" The nurse nodded her head. "I saw it with my own eyes. Did something good happen at home recently?" "Not really. But you should smile more. You look really good when you smile." Yao Anqi nodded her head before she returned to her serious expression. However, the thought of Immerse and Xingzhe alone together made her feel like she was going to laugh. For some reason, the idea of a family of three made Yao Anqi feel a little warm. But, when she thought about the hidden dangers, she returned to her cold expression. After all, she still didn't trust Immerse enough. Meanwhile, Chun Jingrong continued to search for the woman. But, after searching for so long, she still couldn't find any information. Chun Jingrong knew that Immerse's brothers were well aware of this, but they refused to tell her. Because of this, Chun Jingrong found one of them and asked him about Mo Zixi situation. Jingrong, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but Zixi has already made things clear to you. If you continue to pester him, it won't do anyone any good. When Chun Jingrong heard this explanation, she couldn't help but sneer. Did he make things clear? He didn't tell me that he cheated on me and got together with someone else. He even kicked me away. Did he make things clear? It's not what you think, the comrade explained. Do you really want everyone to make things clear before you stop in embarrassment? How am I embarrassing? Chun Jingrong continued to be stubborn. Mo Zixi broke up with me and got together with another woman. How could I be more embarrassed than him? 4 years ago, you didn't just hurt Zixi. Think about it, was it fair to treat another woman? You selfishly took over Zixi and left an orphan and a widow with no one to care for her. You were in the wrong, so you have no right to continue chasing after Zixi. What other woman? What orphan and widow? Explain everything clearly to me. Chun Jingrong caught onto the crux of the matter and forced the comrade to answer. Stop asking. Asking will only make you feel worse. After speaking, the comrade pushed her out the door and shut it tightly. Chun Jingrong did not give up, so she went to look for another comrade. But this time she was a lot smarter. As soon as the comrade opened the door, she said, I know that I've wronged the other woman. I'm looking for Zixi because I want to personally apologize to him. Jingrong, it's good that you have this intention, but I don't think Zixi would allow you to disturb the mother and son for any reason. In other words, the woman that Zixi slept with 4 years ago already gave birth to Zixi's son? Is that so? Am I right? I can't comment on anything else. If that was the case, then things were easy to deal with. 4 years ago, there weren't a lot of people that went out drinking with the military. All she had to do was ask who had a child, and she would be able to find out who it was. Chun Jingrong never expected. It turned out, it was because this woman came knocking on her door that she exposed her and snatched Mo Zixi away. No, she couldn't steal that woman away. If Mo Zixi was really with her because of his child, then she was confident that she could get him back. She believed that she understood Mo Zixi very well. Chapter 12:31. Afterwards, Chun Jingrong immediately went to the hospital to find out which doctors were married and which ones had children. As soon as she asked, the answer was obvious. After all, everyone at the hospital knew that Yao Anqi was pregnant and had children. Yao Anqi, a mere emergency department doctor, actually dared to steal her man. She was way too brave. Needless to say, Chun Jingrong immediately found Yao Anqi's department. As soon as she saw the legendary Dr. Yao, she immediately pulled Yao Anqi to the side and reached out her hand to slap her across the face. But Yao Anqi grabbed onto her wrist. Miss Chun, what are you trying to do? What am I trying to do? Why didn't you ask me this before you stole Mo Zixi's man? Chun Jingrong asked. You obviously know that Mo Zixi and I have been together for 4 years. What kind of mentality did you have? Why did you break us up and become a third party? Everyone at the hospital immediately gathered around. After all, this was a piece of gossip. Everyone already knew about Chun Jingrong and Mo Zixi's relationship. Now that Chun Jingrong was looking for Yao Anqi, wasn't the answer obvious? Could it be that Yao Anqi was the culprit that destroyed someone else's happiness? However, Yao Anqi did not panic as she said straightforwardly, Do you want me to tell you how despicable and senseless you were 4 years ago? How you stripped naked next to Major Mo and pretended to sleep with him? If you want to consider me a third party, then in this relationship you are the third party. I'm not. At most, you're someone who came later. After hearing this, Chun Jingrong was shocked. Would you believe that I can make it so that you can't survive in the hospital? Are you threatening me? I'm an orphan. What's there to be afraid of? Plus, do you really think you can do whatever you want in Beijing? I don't think you can do that with your family's connections. After speaking, Yao Anqi pushed Chun Jingrong away. I don't like to cause trouble, but I'm not afraid of trouble. I'm all alone. When the time comes, I can fight you to the death. You're not afraid of trouble? Is the child that you gave birth to legally? You don't need to worry about that. If there's nothing else, I'm going to leave. After speaking, Yao Anqi walked away from Chun Jingrong and said to the onlookers, "What are you looking at? Why aren't you going back to work?" Only then did the people at the hospital look at Yao Anqi in a new light. It turned out, Dr. Yao, who never fought for anything and had a natural temperament, was quite handsome when she was angry. Plus, according to Yao Anqi, Chun Jingrong actually did something so despicable just to get her hands on Mo Zishi. No wonder Mo Zishi broke up with her so decisively after finding out. The incident quickly spread like wildfire, but Yao Anqi acted like nothing had happened. After all, as long as she knew her place, she was not afraid. Since Chun Jingrong was the despicable person, there was no way she was going to back down. After the assistant found out, he couldn't help but ask Yao Anqi in private, "Dr. Yao, I never imagined that Major Mo was really little Xingxing's father. In that case, why didn't you look for him for the past 4 years?" "There is no reason." "Okay, I know you don't want to answer. Then, does little Star have a father now?" "Of course. But it wasn't legal yet." It didn't take long before Mo Zishi found out about what happened at the hospital. Although he didn't know how Chun Jingrong dug Yao Anqi out, when he saw the video someone recorded and heard Yao Anqi say that she was all alone, his heart was moved. Afterwards, when Chun Jingrong mentioned that it wasn't legal, Mo Zishi's eyes darkened. All these years, Chun Jingrong had disguised herself too well, so well that he had no idea that the crazy Chun Jingrong was capable of biting anyone. He really wanted Yao Anqi to leave that troublesome place because he knew that there was no point in being entangled with Chun Jingrong. But Yao Anqi also needed to be willing. That night, Yao Anqi returned home from work. When she saw Xingxia sleeping soundly in his father's arms, her expression relaxed a little. Afterwards, she put down her bag and carried Xingxia from Mo Zishi's arms. Mo Zishi stood up and said, "I already know about what happened at the hospital, but I wasn't the one who told her. I already knew about her actions at the hospital, so I expected her to find out," Yao Anqi replied. "Even if she comes looking for me, I won't be afraid. After all, her man is right in front of me right now." "Anqi, I know what you want to say, but I'm not as weak as you think." After speaking, Yao Anqi comforted Xingxia and carried him into the nursery. Mo Zishi followed behind Yao Anqi for quite some time before he finally said, "I don't know what I should do to show my support and protection for you. There's something in the video that made me feel really bad. So, I've been thinking about it at home all day. I think I want Xingxia's birth to be legal and I want you to have a legitimate identity. Of course, if you don't want to, I can wait." After hearing this, Yao Anqi turned around and looked at Mo Zishi. "Did you make this decision carefully?" "Of course I did. I told you before, if you don't marry me, I will take care of Xingxia and never marry again," Mo Zishi replied in seriousness. "After all, I'm a father now. I want to be a good role model for my child." "I can apply for leave tomorrow morning," Yao Anqi replied. "My ID is in the drawer in the bedroom upstairs. You agree? Isn't it just like you said? I need confidence and I don't want Xingxia to be judged by others." "But, Mo Zishi, I'm only going to say this once. I get hurt easily and hold grudges easily. Most importantly, if you want to lie to me, don't let me know that I'm not ready to be your wife yet. I'm doing this for Xingxia, so I'm willing to give it a try. But you can't force me." Mo Zishi nodded his head. "I understand and understand. In front of me, you don't need to be so affectionate. You just broke up with someone not too long ago and relationships are built up over time. I understand that. But, since you've decided to get married, you need to be on the same side as me." "Of course," Mo Zishi nodded. "You don't need to propose. You can make it up to me when you actually fall in love with me. Right now, it doesn't really matter." All they needed to do was register their ID and confirm their relationship. Then, no matter how much Chun Jingrong threw a tantrum, nothing would happen. Yao Anqi wasn't afraid that Chun Jingrong would throw a tantrum. She was simply afraid that her words would cause Xingxia to get hurt. "Are you still going to stay at the hospital? Why should I leave because of her? I didn't do anything wrong." Mo Zishi couldn't help but laugh. "I originally thought that your indifference was because you were afraid of trouble and didn't want to fight for it. That depends on who you're dealing with. Chapter 1232. That night, the couple slept in separate rooms. Yao Anqi slept in the master bedroom with little Xingzhe while Mo Zishi slept in the guest room. Mo Zishi placed his hands under his head and thought back to everything that happened between him and Chen Jingrong over the past 4 years. He never thought about it in detail before, but now that he thought about it, everything seemed to be filled with lies. This was all a dream created by Chen Jingrong. But the funny thing was they would eventually wake up from this dream. He thought about Yao Anqi, the woman who had endured so many hardships for him. He felt like he owed Yao Anqi and little Xingzhe too much. The next morning, the couple took Xingzhe to the civil affairs office to complete the paperwork. As their identities were special, Mo Zishi even brought out the marriage report he received from his superiors before he left the military base. Why did you only register for marriage when the baby is already so big? The staff questioned the couple. Most importantly, they wanted to ask Mo Zishi why he only realized he needed to take responsibility when the child was already 3 years old. Mo Zishi smiled as he looked at Yao Anqi and replied, I took a lot of detours before, but haven't I finally found the correct answer? The staff glared at him and finally issued the documents to them. In reality, the two of them had followed in the footsteps of Tongning and Mo Ting. Of course, when Mo Ting and Tongning got married, they didn't have any emotional foundation. In fact, they didn't even know each other. And now, between them, at least there is a child. However, even though they were officially husband and wife, there were still a lot of knots in their hearts that needed to be undone. However, Mo Zishi was not in a rush. After all, he would have plenty of time to get to know this woman. After registering their marriage, Yao Anqi rushed back to the hospital for work. Of course, the red marriage certificate was still in her handbag. Yesterday, Chen Jingrong caused a ruckus, so today, she signed up with Mo Zishi for no other reason than because Mo Zishi was determined to leave Chen Jingrong. Deep down, she knew that the reason Mo Zishi completely gave up on Chen Jingrong was because of Chen Jingrong's endless lies, not because of her involvement. Since she had a clear conscience, she was going to ignore Chen Jingrong. Dr. Yao, you took the morning off. Chen Jingrong came to make a scene again. The assistant looked at Yao Anqi awkwardly and said, she might even come over this afternoon. It's fine. Just do what you have to do. As soon as Yao Anqi returned to the hospital, she returned to her icy cold self. The assistant nodded her head. She was worried that Yao Anqi's reputation would be ruined by Chen Jingrong and people would misunderstand her. Causing a scene like this in the military was already very embarrassing. But Chen Jingrong was willing to throw caution to the wind. But no matter what, Chen Jingrong couldn't accept it. Although Yao Anqi and Mo Zishi had a physical relationship that night, she had still been by his side for 4 years. Could it be that 4 years couldn't even compare to one night with that woman? She had no idea why Mo Zishi broke up with her. After all, a relationship couldn't be measured by how long it lasted. If you didn't give your heart, even if you were together for 10, 20, or 30 years, what difference did it make? Chen Jingrong felt like she had given up everything. She even went as far as lying to Mo Zishi. She could do so much for Mo Zishi, but could Yao Anqi? But time would tell her that she was only deceiving herself. After registering with Yao Anqi, Mo Zishi knew he couldn't ignore Chen Jingrong's matter anymore, so he contacted his superior. His superior heard about the commotion Chen Jingrong caused at the hospital, so he couldn't help but sigh. This Chen Jingrong has completely embarrassed the military. Don't worry, I will talk to her. If worst comes to worst, we'll have to use force. Chen Jingrong knew that she would be asked to talk to him sooner or later. She believed that she was willing to give up everything for Mo Zishi. Chen Jingrong, how far are you going to push things before you give up? Chief, I want Mo Zishi to come out and see me, Chen Jingrong said firmly. Otherwise, I will continue to cause trouble. What kind of place do you think the military is? Do you have any discipline? How will the hospital view us because of something like this? You'll be locked up for 7 days. If you continue to cause trouble at the hospital, you can go home. I'll set you free forever. Go look for Mo Zishi. Chen Jingrong left the chief's office in tears. But There was nothing she could do. She refused to give up on this child. Mozishi was already married. Yet Chun Jingrong continued to cause trouble. How could she allow this? Meanwhile, at the hospital, Yao Anqi was expecting Chen Jingrong to cause trouble again, so she prepared herself for a fight. But, to her surprise, Chen Jingrong did not show up. In the end, she found out that Chun Jingrong had been locked up for 7 days. Although Yao Anqi was only guessing, she had a feeling that it had something to do with Mozishi. That night, Yao Anqi returned home to find Mozishi dancing with Xingzhe. She immediately let out a laugh. As soon as Mozishi saw Yao Anqi at the door, he awkwardly turned off the nursery rhyme on the television. I thought it would be a while before you came home. The ER isn't busy today, so I came home early, Yao Anqi said as she bought some groceries. Mozishi's eyes lit up. You know how to cook? How else am I supposed to live? Play with Xingzhe for a bit. Dinner will be ready in half an hour. Mozishi was a picky eater, but that was because Mo Ting and Tongning's cooking was always the best. So the Mo family couldn't stand the outside world. Plus, Yao Anqi's hands were obviously used to holding scalpels. So, seeing her holding a kitchen knife made him a little uncomfortable. By the way, did you know that Chun Jingrong has been locked up? Really? Mozishi asked. I guess it's because she's affected the military's image. I'm actually not that afraid of her. After all, we will still see each other in the future. Yao Anqi said to Mozishi as he held Xingzhe in his arms as she cooked. But, when she saw the pacifier in Xingzhe's mouth, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xingzhe hasn't used that thing for a long time. Really? No experience. Mozishi immediately pulled the pacifier out of Xingzhe's mouth. But, as soon as he pulled it out, Xingzhe started crying. Mozishi comforted him for a while before he looked at Yao Anqi helplessly. Yao Anqi let out a laugh and placed the pacifier back into Xingzhe's mouth. The little rascal immediately stopped crying. Didn't you say that you don't need it anymore? Why are you so obedient? Yao Anqi asked. If I don't listen to my wife, who else would I listen to? Mozishi asked. Yao Anqi's heart sank as she casually commented. You used to have bad taste. Chapter 12:33. Mozishi shrugged his shoulders, but he did not say anything bad about Chun Jingrong. This was his final act of grace towards her. After dinner, Mozishi took little Xingzhe to the bathroom for a bath. But Yao Anqi spotted him and carried him out of the water. Mozishi followed behind, a little confused. The bath isn't done yet. Xingzhe has hemolysis and his immune system is low. He shouldn't stay in the water for too long, Yao Anqi said before she carried Xingzhe back to the master bedroom and placed him on the bed. After hearing this, Mozishi felt extremely guilty. I'm sorry. Yao Anqi was silent for a moment before she sighed and turned around. Go change your clothes in case you catch a cold. Mozishi looked at his clothes and nodded. In that case, when I come out, teach me how to do it properly. Yao Anqi did not say anything else as she nodded her head. Mozishi was a new father, so sometimes he wasn't as mature as a woman. So he sometimes forgot that Xingzhe was sick. Because of this, he needed Yao Anqi to watch over him. After changing into a new set of clothes, Yao Anqi returned to the bedroom. She had already prepared everything. She turned on the shower and turned on the air conditioner. This will make Xingzhe feel better. Go in. Mozishi looked at the bathtub helplessly. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have changed. Yao Anqi knew that Mozishi was pretending to be relaxed to make her less nervous. Over the past 2 days, she had slowly come to accept the fact that she was married. As for Mozishi's existence, she was no longer as repulsed. Meanwhile, Xingzhe was even happier. Perhaps he didn't know what it meant to be a father, but he could clearly feel that he was in a place that was safer than his mother's embrace. Mozishi jumped into the water and played with his son. Seeing this, Yao Anqi did not disturb them any further. She simply closed the bathroom door and allowed the father and son to bond. Actually, this kind of life wasn't bad. Especially Xingzhe, who was extremely happy. That night, it wasn't easy for Mozishi to coax Xingzhe to sleep, Before he left the master bedroom, he said to Yao Anqi, "I'll get the nanny to look after Xingyan tomorrow. I need to report to the special forces tomorrow." "Okay," Yao Anqi replied. "Don't worry. Although they have a good reputation, I still installed a camera in the house. You will be able to see everything that happens in the house. Tomorrow, I'll buy some food and leave it at home. It should be enough for you and your son to eat for a while. The nanny will buy the rest for you. Also, I've left my card on your bedside table. If you need anything, just swipe it." Yao Anqi listened quietly without replying. After a while, she finally asked, "Anything else? Also, after I join the special forces, it's even more impossible for me to see Chun Jingrong. Don't worry." Yao Anqi smiled and nodded. "Sure, I'll remember what you said. Then you and Xingzhe should sleep." After speaking, Mo Zishi turned around and left the bedroom. Yao Anqi did not try to stop him. Although he was a little disappointed, she did not force him. After all, he was the one who didn't take care of Xingzhe's health that night. He made himself seem especially childish and unable to handle the responsibilities of a father. It was understandable that Yao Anqi didn't trust him. But, for some reason, as he lay in bed, Mo Zishi spent most of his time thinking about Yao Anqi and the child in the master bedroom. These two people practically occupied half his mind. The next morning, Mo Zishi woke up early. Seeing that Yao Anqi hadn't woken up yet, he snuck into the bedroom and laid down on Xingzhe's bed to look at his son's obedient face. He seemed to be having a sweet dream, waving his little hands from time to time. "Xingzhe, I let you down last night. I almost made you fall sick." Mo Zishi leaned over and placed a kiss on Xingzhe's cheek, unwilling to let him go. "Daddy is going to the army, so I might not be able to see you for a while. That's why I decided to take a photo of you. That way, when I miss you, I can take a look at you." Yao Anqi was awoken by Mo Zishi, but she did not get up. Just like that, Mo Zishi sat by Xingzhe's bedside and spoke to him for half an hour. He also took a lot of photos. She never expected this man to be so affectionate. Yao Anqi couldn't take it anymore, so she finally turned on the bedside lamp and pulled out a photo album from her drawer. She then handed a photo of her and Xingzhe to Mo Zishi. "This is for you. Did I wake you up? If you don't turn on the light, how could you take a clear photo?" Because it was too dark and Mo Zishi did not dare to turn on the flash, the photo only showed a dark blur. "I simply hope that after I go to the army, I'll have something to remember," Mo Zishi replied. "I know. You've already done enough by giving us such a good living environment. You don't need to carry any more burdens on your shoulders," Yao Anqi said as she looked at Xingzhe. "When you have time, come home often." "Of course I will." Mo Zishi could no longer hold back as he pulled Yao Anqi into his embrace and hugged her tightly. But he did not do anything else as he quickly left with the photo. Yao Anqi's heart moved a little. After all, she knew that Mo Zishi was a man with an indomitable spirit. So, as soon as Mo Zishi left, she chased after him barefooted and grabbed onto his arm. "Xingzhe and I will be waiting for you at home." At this time, the sky was dark, but as soon as Mo Zishi lowered his head, he noticed Yao Anqi standing barefoot on the steps. So, he immediately rushed into the house and retrieved her shoes. He then knelt down and helped her put them on, one at a time. "Remember, no matter what happens, give me a phone call, or you can go to Hyatt Regency." "Okay, go in, it's quite cold outside." Yao Anqi nodded. After Mo Zishi left, she turned around and returned to the master bedroom. It wasn't that she didn't remember the night from 4 years ago. That night, when she was passionately intertwined with that man, her mind kept replaying the scene. Perhaps because of this, Yao Anqi felt a natural familiarity with Mo Zishi, because they existed in each other's memories. Because of this, it was easy for her to fall in love with him. Plus, ever since Mo Zishi found out about her and Xingzhe's existence, he had done so much for them. This man was definitely worth trusting. So, she decided to work hard to fit in as a wife. At the very least, she wanted him to be her husband and sleep in the master bedroom. At that time, Chun Jingrong was locked up in solitary confinement. She still wanted to see Mo Zishi after she was released, but she had no idea that Mo Zishi had already joined the special forces. Chapter 1234. After 7 days of confinement, Chun Jingrong immediately returned to the military. But she couldn't go to the hospital to cause trouble for Yao Anqi because she had promised her superiors. Otherwise, she would be kicked out of the military base. Yao Anqi continued to work day after day. But there were times when she would receive phone calls from Mo Zishi or messages from him. Yao Anqi never returned his calls. Every time she did say a few words, she would end up hanging up because she had an emergency patient. Because of this, Yao Anqi's assistant said to Yao Anqi, "Dr. Yao, aren't you being too cold towards Major Mo?" "Am I?" Yao Anqi's assistant quickly nodded. "You're super cold. That's just how I talk," Yao Anqi explained. "Even if you ask me to speak softly, I won't." Yao Anqi's assistant nodded her head. It made sense. If the gentle Yao Anqi heard this, she would have thought she had seen a ghost. Actually, Yao Anqi had always been the gentle type. As long as she sat in her office without saying a word, she would look like a pretty daughter from a humble family. "I'm just giving you a suggestion. After all, you and Major Mo are in that kind of relationship. Don't couples care about each other when they speak? You can be a little less formal." Although Yao Anqi did not respond, she took her assistant's words to heart. Mo Zishi was gone for 7 days. Apart from phone calls, she didn't see him at all. What kind of couple were they? However, Yao Anqi understood that Mo Zishi was a soldier. That day, after work, Yao Anqi was about to return home to take care of the kids when she was stopped by Chun Jingrong, who was dressed in casual clothes. "I don't have a military rank right now. I'm just a normal woman. Why don't you talk to me for a bit?" Yao Anqi didn't want to talk to Chun Jingrong, so she flagged down a taxi and headed home. But Chun Jingrong grabbed onto the car door. "Even if you ignore me right now, we'll eventually talk things out. Why are you avoiding me? Perhaps after talking to you, I'll let go. Who knows? But I don't want to waste time with you. You've already won. Zishi is already yours. Can't you sympathize with the weak?" Chun Jingrong held onto Yao Anqi's hand as her eyes turned red. "I have nothing now. My man, my youth, my feelings." After Yao Anqi heard this, she closed the car door and sat down with Chun Jingrong in the nearby rest area. "Tell me, what else do you want? I know that you and Zishi have a child, but you don't want Zishi to be with you because of his responsibilities, right? I believe that Zishi still loves me. That's why I came looking for you. I can only beg you to return Zishi to me. If worst comes to worst, I'll raise your child for you." After hearing Chun Jingrong's words, Yao Anqi let out a laugh. "You should be asking Mo Zishi whether he still loves you, not me. Plus, I can't give him back to you just because you beg me. He's not an object that can be pushed around. Most importantly, he is the one that makes the decision. Plus, I can raise my own child. I don't need a stepmother. You're overthinking this. Lastly, you don't seem to understand why Mo Zishi cut off all ties with you. It wasn't because of me and Xingzhe, it was because of your lies. I'm sure you know how many lies you've told Mo Zishi over the past 4 years. Put yourself in his shoes. If someone lied to you the same way, how would you feel? Didn't you suspect Mo Zishi of being with me behind your back?" At this moment, Chun Jingrong burst into tears. "I didn't do it on purpose. I simply loved him too much. The only person you love the most is yourself. I've never forced Mo Zishi to leave at any time. A person's heart can't be forced, whether it's towards you or me." After speaking, the conversation came to an end. Yao Anqi understood that Chun Jingrong was upset, but there were some things that couldn't be changed. After all, the hurt that Chun Jingrong suffered in the past couldn't go back. Plus, this wasn't Mo Zishi's fault. That night, while Yao Anqi was bathing little Xingzhe, he kept calling for his father. Perhaps, Mo Zishi knew that his son missed him, so he actually returned home. As soon as he arrived home, the first thing he did was pull Xingzhe into his arms and kiss him. When Yao Anqi saw this, she couldn't help but ask, "Why do you look a little tanner?" Training is very important and I only have 8 hours before I have to leave at 5 a.m. tomorrow. So I quickly came back to see Xingzhe. And you? After Yao Anqi heard this, she said to Mozishi, Chun Jingrong came looking for me again today and begged me to let you go. Staying by your mother and son's side is my own choice. It has nothing to do with you. There's no point in her looking for you. That's what I told her. Yao Anqi replied. Let's not talk about this. I'm hungry. Is there anything to eat? Mozishi changed the subject. He didn't want to spend a few short hours talking about irrelevant people. Go back to bathing, Xingzhe. I'll go make you some food. Yao Anqi said. It'll be ready in a bit. Okay. Mozishi nodded his head as he quickly placed his son back into the bathtub and carefully wiped him down. Xingzhe was so excited that he almost danced in the bathtub after hearing that his father was home. So, Mozishi took this opportunity to wash himself clean. By the time he walked out of the bedroom, the father and son were both handsome. Give me my son. You go eat. Go eat. Yao Anqi said. I can hug my son and eat. Mozishi couldn't bear to let his son go. He never knew that having this little one would make him miss him so much. Every day he couldn't wait to finish his training so he could video chat with Yao Anqi. He won't be comfortable. No, I'll hug him. Yao Anqi had no choice but to let him be. Meanwhile, Mozishi couldn't hide the smile on his face as soon as he saw his wife and son. The happiness he felt was hard to describe, but it came from the bottom of his heart. It's already 10 p.m. Xingzhe should get some rest. I'll hug him for a bit longer. I'll let you look at him all you want tonight. Give him to me first, Yao Anqi said helplessly. Yao Anqi said helplessly, why don't you sleep in the master bedroom tonight? I think that way you can see your son the entire night. What about you? As long as you don't disturb my rest, Yao Anqi said as she lowered her head. In other words, the two of them were sleeping together? Was that what she meant? Mozishi was afraid that he had misunderstood. So he asked, are you sleeping in the master bedroom too? Chapter 12:35. Mozishi was already done with his shower. So, as he walked into the master bedroom, he carried Xingzhe and watched as Yao Anqi walked into the bathroom with a bathrobe. He felt a little uncomfortable. Luckily, Xingzhe was very understanding. Knowing that his father was a little shy, he grabbed onto the back of his hand. Mozishi placed Xingzhe in the middle of the bed and sang a lullaby to coax his son to sleep. To him, his son was the most important thing that night. But he had completely underestimated Yao Anqi's figure. After her shower, Yao Anqi walked out of the bathroom in a bathrobe. But Mozishi could still sense how mature and alluring her body was underneath the bathrobe. So, he quickly averted his gaze and looked at Xingzhe's bed. Yao Anqi walked over to the vanity and wiped her face like there was no one around. But, as the bathrobe slid down her legs were exposed to Mozishi's gaze. Mozishi felt a little helpless, so he reminded her, Air, can you pull the bathrobe up properly? Yao Anqi was a little surprised as she looked down at her clothes. She didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I'm a healthy, mature man, Mozishi immediately explained. Because Yao Anqi was a doctor, she wasn't surprised by this. So, she did not avoid Mozishi. Since Mozishi had a problem with it, she still pulled the bathrobe up. Afterwards, Yao Anqi lay down on the bed and looked through the surgery schedule for the next day. Meanwhile, after coaxing Xingzhe to sleep, Mozishi felt a little awkward. But he still walked over to the bed, pulled aside the blankets and lay down beside Yao Anqi. Good night. Yao Anqi did not say a word to Mozishi. Instead, she put down the documents in her hands, lay down and turned off the bedside lamp. Mozishi also turned off the lamp. In the dark, neither of them spoke a word. All that could be heard was the sound of steady breathing. Beside him, Yao Anqi's fragrance wafted into his nose. Mozishi felt a sense of familiarity. That night 4 years ago, even though they were both drunk, at this moment, the familiar scent filled his nostrils and Mozishi felt his body heat up. So, he subconsciously distanced himself from Yao Anqi so she wouldn't discover this awkward truth. Actually, Yao Anqi knew that night and remembered it clearly. Now that the same man was sleeping next to her, she didn't feel sleepy at all. Zishi, Yao Anqi suddenly shouted. Ha! Mo Zishi immediately responded, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" "I can't sleep," Yao Anqi replied. "Maybe it's because I'm not used to someone suddenly lying next to me. Should I sleep on the sofa outside?" Mo Zishi asked. "There's no need. I'll get used to it sooner or later anyway." After speaking, Yao Anqi did not continue and Mo Zishi did not return to the sofa like he had said. It wasn't easy for him to sneak into the master bedroom. How could he leave so easily? Now, Xingzhe was sleeping in a small bed while the woman that he had let down for 4 years was lying on a large bed. This time, no matter what, he wasn't going to leave. So, in the dark, Mo Zishi stretched out his hand and placed it on Yao Anqi's waist. Surprisingly, Yao Anqi did not reject him. This seemed to be a kind of tacit understanding, as well as a kind of consensus. In fact, both of them were trying to get closer to each other. At the very least, since the opportunity had come, they had to seize it. That same night, Chen Jingrong was completely drunk outside. She couldn't see Mo Zishi, nor could she convince Yao Anqi to give him back to her. So, she had no choice but to break military rules and get drunk. A lot of people tried to hit on her at the bar and even offered to take her home. Chen Jingrong chose a man from the crowd and called him Mo Zishi in a drunken manner. This man was the closest in height to her. The man did not say a word as he carried Chen Jingrong out of the bar and headed straight to the hotel. This was an unspoken rule in the bar. As long as a man tried to hit on a woman and she responded, it meant that she agreed to spend the night with him. So, the man naturally assumed that Chen Jingrong wanted to spend the night with him. The couple rolled around on the bed. Only when the man finally entered her did he realize that Chen Jingrong was still a virgin. In fact, Chen Jingrong even called out Mo Zishi's name. As soon as the man heard this, he realized that he had become a substitute. Plus, he didn't want to spend the night with a woman who had done it for the first time. So, he sat up in bed, tidied up the two women, paid for the hotel room and left. Chen Jingrong lay in bed drunk. She didn't have much of an impression of what happened the night before. All she remembered was that when she woke up, her body hurt, especially in a certain special area. Could it be? Chen Jingrong panicked as she quickly ran out of the hotel. But, as soon as she returned to the military base, she was faced with an even more severe punishment. She had left her post without permission. All of a sudden, Chen Jingrong found it hard to accept. But, to confirm that she had actually been violated, Chen Jingrong immediately went to the hospital for an examination. Although there are signs of contact, your hymen is fine. There are no problems. So, Miss Chen, you don't need to worry, the doctor replied honestly. After hearing this, Chen Jingrong almost broke down and burst into tears. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have gone to a place like a bar. Now, she was suspended from work and was awaiting punishment. Her life had really become a mess because of Mo Zishi. Afterwards, Father Chen arrived at the military base and took Chen Jingrong home. For the sake of a man, you made yourself look like a ghost. Don't you have any shame? Chen Jingrong was in pain. What shame did she have? Now that the entire world knew that she had stripped naked and laid next to Mo Zishi, what shame did she have? Come home with me. I'll help you find a new place to start over, Father Chen demanded. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a daughter like you and you wouldn't have to worry about us two old geezers. This time, Chen Jingrong was very obedient and did not object. I'll go home with you. That's right. Mo Zishi had already left. What was the point of her staying here? But she wasn't satisfied that no one dared to cause trouble for Yao Anqi anymore. Yao Anqi also heard that Chen Jingrong had been taken away. If that was the case, would she be able to live in peace from now on? But Yao Anqi was completely wrong. Because, a moment later, she received a notice from the hospital that she was going to be transferred to be a battlefield doctor. This was probably the last thing that Father Chen did for his daughter before he left. He wanted to get revenge on Yao Anqi. Dr. Yao, it seems the hospital has been pressured. If you don't agree to be a battlefield doctor, they'll make you leave the military hospital, the assistant said to Yao Anqi. Dr. Yao, it seems the hospital has been pressured. Chapter 1236. As soon as Yao Anqi heard about the incident, she removed her surgical gloves and headed straight for the hospital chief's office. Chief, I've already made my decision. I have a child, so there's nothing I can do about it. Anqi, your medical skills are actually very good, so I don't want you to leave either. But, Chief, you don't need to feel bad. After speaking, Yao Anqi pulled out her resignation letter and bowed deeply to the hospital director. Without waiting for a response, she turned around and left the office. She had plenty of opportunities to leave the military hospital, but because of Xingzhe, she didn't get to do so. Now that everything was ready, she naturally had to grab hold of the opportunity to advance. Of course, Yao Anqi did not tell Mo Zishi about her decision. After returning home, she spent 3 whole days with Xingzhe. On the 4th day, she finally went for an interview at Beijing Hospital with her resume. As she had been an ER doctor for many years, she had plenty of surgical experience. So, Beijing Hospital treated her well and provided her with a lot of resources. This was something that she wouldn't be able to enjoy at the military hospital. Miss Yao, I don't doubt your abilities. But I have one question that I need you to answer for me. Chief, please go ahead. Yao Anqi replied politely. Why did you leave the military hospital? I was kicked out because I offended someone I shouldn't have. Yao Anqi replied honestly. Fine, Beijing Hospital welcomes you. After speaking, the hospital chief stood up and shook Yao Anqi's hand. Because of her outstanding abilities, Yao Anqi directly took over the position of chief after arriving at Beijing Hospital. A big hospital naturally became busier, but Yao Anqi felt unusually fulfilled. 7 days later, Mo Zishi was finally able to see his wife and son again. But during dinner that night, the first thing Yao Anqi said was, I left the military hospital. When did this happen? Mo Zishi asked. About half a month ago, Yao Anqi replied. I'm currently working at Beijing Hospital as the chief of the ER department. Mo Zishi did not say a word, but Yao Anqi could sense that the atmosphere was a little strange. It wasn't until late at night that Mo Zishi finally spoke as the couple lay in bed. Why didn't you tell me as soon as it happened? You don't think it's necessary, right? Angie, I admit that our beginnings weren't as good as everyone else's. But, I've said it before, I'm willing to get closer to you. While I was training at the military base every day, I thought about going home to see you in Xingzhe. I really wanted to be by your side. But, you changed hospitals and didn't tell me, treating me like an outsider. At this moment, Yao Anqi was speechless. No matter how she tried to explain, she couldn't deny that she didn't inform Mo Zishi as soon as possible. That night, the couple looked at each other in silence. In fact, Yao Anqi had no idea when Mo Zishi left. Was she being too casual with Mo Zishi? Yao Anqi couldn't help reflecting on herself. Perhaps he was really angry, but after Mo Zishi left, he didn't return home for half a month. Yao Anqi was so busy that she didn't have time to give him a phone call. Perhaps her heart was simply too cold? That day, she had an operation at the hospital and was stitching up a patient. The patient asked Yao Anqi, Doctor, you're so young. You don't have a partner yet, right? My child is already 3 years old, Yao Anqi replied. Oh, I wonder what kind of man would be able to marry someone as outstanding as you. After Yao Anqi heard what the man had to say, she walked into the waiting room after the surgery was over and pulled out her phone. She felt that if she continued to be so indifferent, she and Mo Zishi would only be Xingzhe's parents for the rest of their lives. That was all. Meanwhile, Mo Zishi had already returned home. Seeing that Yao Anqi was calling him, Mo Zishi picked up the phone. I thought you'd forgotten about me as your husband. Zishi, don't be angry at me. You know that I've never been in a relationship before, yet I suddenly became a mother. There are a lot of things that I don't know how to do and I don't know how to maintain a relationship. I was born with a weakness in this area. So, if I haven't taken the initiative, then please take the initiative. Don't blame me or be angry at me, okay? After hearing Yao Anshi's words, the anger in Mo Zishi's chest finally dissipated. If you had called me earlier, everything would have been fine. Men are actually easy to coax. It's not as complicated as you think. I have another operation coming up, so I won't talk to you any longer. Let's talk at home tonight. Mo Zishi nodded his head and reminded, go do what you need to do. I'll come pick you up later. Okay. In a relationship, someone had to be willing to take the initiative. Yao Anchi was well aware that her personality was lacking and she was slow in this area. So, taking this step wasn't easy for her. Afterwards, Yao Anchi returned to her post. As soon as her new assistant saw her phone call, her expression changed, so she immediately asked, was that a phone call from brother-in-law? I called him. Yao Anchi corrected. I really want to meet brother-in-law. How outstanding does he have to be to marry our Dr. Yao? How outstanding does he have to be? He just needs to be able to fire accurately at the right moment. We got on the train first and paid the ticket later. Yao Anchi smiled at her assistant. It was rare for Yao Anchi's assistant to see her smile. After all, Yao Anchi was always quiet and cold. This time, it was because of Mo Zishi that she had a different expression on her face. In that case, brother-in-law is amazing. All the more reason for us to meet him. Mo Zishi had no idea that the people around Yao Anchi were already talking about him. He had just coaxed Xingzhe to sleep and was about to pick Yao Anchi up from work when he received a phone call from his former comrade. He called to ask about Yao Anchi. How's Anchi been lately? I just heard that she left the military hospital because the Chun family pressured the hospital chief. As soon as Mo Zishi heard this, his expression changed. Is this information reliable? Of course, a lot of people in the hospital know about it. Why? Didn't Anchi tell you about it? How is she doing? She's doing great. After speaking, Mo Zishi hung up the phone and quickly drove over to Beijing Hospital. At this time, it was drizzling outside and the weather was cold. Yao Anchi stood outside the hospital entrance, looking around every now and then. A colleague held up an umbrella and asked Yao Anchi if she wanted to leave with her. However, Yao Anchi shook her head because she had already spotted Mo Zishi. Look, that's Dr. Yao's husband. He's tall and handsome. Chapter 1237. As soon as Yao Anchi heard the commotion around her, she walked up to him. Mo Zishi pulled her into his arms and escorted her back to the car. The couple did not say a word on the way back because Mo Zishi's car was way too fast. Yao Anchi sensed Mo Zishi's emotions. Last time he was like this too. Whenever he was emotional, he would let her see it. Why didn't you tell me? What? Yao Anchi asked confusedly. About the Chun family's oppression, Mo Zishi asked patiently. What reason did you keep it to yourself this time? I simply didn't want you to be put in a difficult position between me and the Chun family. Yao Anchi explained. But I can't let you suffer like this for nothing. Mo Zishi emphasized. You didn't do anything wrong, so you don't need to endure the Chun family's anger. This time, it's just work. What if they threaten you with a divorce next time? Are you going to do the same thing? I also want to leave the military hospital, that's why. Wanting to leave and being forced to leave are two different things. Mo Zishi interrupted before Yao Anchi could finish her sentence. Afterwards, the couple remained silent until they returned home. By this time, Xingzhe had already fallen asleep under the coaxing of the nanny. As soon as he saw Mo Zishi and Yao Anchi arrive home, he immediately left. Mo Zishi looked at Yao Anchi sitting on the sofa without moving. So he walked over, lifted her up in his arms, and threw her onto the bed in the guest room. Before Yao Anchi could react, Mo Zishi's body was already on top of hers. Like this, their bodies were pressed against each other and their faces were touching. I don't know why, but I feel like it's very difficult to open your heart. You don't even want to open a crack for me. When something happens, I need to find out from someone else. It's like I'm not needed and your husband is just a decoration. What do I need to do for you to acknowledge me? Or do I need to possess you like I did 4 years ago? Do I need to be intimate with you before you'll accept the fact that I'm your husband and not just the father of your child? Yao Anqi did not move as she allowed Emozishi to press on top of her. After Emozishi was done venting, she finally said, I'm used to being independent and being on my own, so I can't think too much at the moment. I'm not sure what I need to do to be considered needed. Are you like other women, always sticking to a man? Of course, I can't do it. But when I'm in trouble, I think of you. Is this a need? After hearing Yao Anqi's words, Emozishi was stunned. Then he let go of Yao Anqi. I'm a doctor. I like to turn big things into small things and small things into nothing. Because I believe that in the face of life, there aren't so many things that can be argued or entangled. So, I like to simplify my love life. If you feel uncomfortable because of this, then I apologize. Emozishi looked into Yao Anqi's eyes. In the end, he admitted defeat and got off her body. He then grabbed her by the arm and said, I was just too anxious. So, I don't blame you, Yao Anqi replied. I just don't know why. But I suddenly have expectations for you. I sincerely hope that we can start a new life together. One that belongs to the three of us and doesn't involve anyone else. Okay. Yao Anqi nodded her head in seriousness. Emozishi felt a little defeated that he received Yao Anqi's answer so easily. He felt like he wasn't valued enough. But he had no idea, as long as Yao Anqi agreed to something, she would do it even if it meant giving it her all. Let's go out for dinner. When Xingzhe wakes up, there's going to be trouble. Okay. The couple walked out of the guest room. One went into the kitchen while the other went into the master bedroom. When Emozishi saw Xingzhe sleeping peacefully on the bed, his heart was filled with hope. No matter what, he was going to become a real family with Yao Anqi and their son. After dinner, Emozishi bathed Xingzhe and coaxed him to sleep. Yao Anqi went into the bathroom to take a shower. A moment later, the couple were lying in bed. Of course, this time they weren't as awkward as before. Instead, they were a lot more natural. However, he was a man. Especially since his wife was lying beside him and Yao Anqi's fragrance was still lingering in Emozishi's nose. He couldn't help but have a reaction. However, as Yao Anqi flipped over, she awkwardly touched a hot spot, causing her face to turn red. Emozishi did not move. He simply turned off the bedside lamp and calmed himself down. But, at this time he heard Yao Anqi say, Let's sleep in the guest room tonight. Emozishi understood what she was hinting at, but he was in disbelief. Are you saying? Yao Anqi did not say another word. She simply stood up and walked into the guest room. She didn't want to disturb Xingzhe's sleep. Emozishi followed behind her. At this moment, he appeared even more shy. Inside the guest room, Yao Anqi did not turn on the lights, but her hint was obvious. Emozishi lay down on the bed, but he did not do as he pleased. Instead, he wrapped his arms around Yao Anqi and whispered beside her ear, I don't want to take you so casually. I want to wait for you to trust me. You've already given birth to a son. What's the point of saying all this? Emozishi? Seeing that he still didn't want to make a move, Yao Anqi removed his bathrobe. Perhaps it was because of his recent training, but Emozishi's body had become stronger and healthier. You are my husband, I've already acknowledged that. This time, Emozishi did not hold back. The memory of that night 4 years ago kept replaying in his mind. The feeling of their skin against each other was exactly the same as the feeling at this moment. Emozishi felt like he had been electrocuted. At this moment, Emozishi was certain that his feelings for Chun Jingrong came from the memory of that night. The person he liked was the woman that he was intimate with, but Chun Jingrong pretended to be her. Now that this woman was by his side, he suddenly realized that his memories had been awakened and the beautiful feeling returned. It made him extremely excited. What made Emozishi even happier was the fact that he finally understood his feelings. Why did he have expectations for Yao Anqi so quickly? Why did he have urges for Yao Anqi so quickly? This was all because he had fallen in love with Yao Anqi from the very beginning. Even though it was called love at first sleep, it was all because of Yao Anqi. With this thought, Emozishi became even more excited. His originally gentle palms suddenly became intense as they swept across Yao Anshi's body, leaving behind seductive sparks on every part of her body. Chapter 1238. Actually, in Yao Anshi's memory, that night was one of the happiest moments in the past few years. After all, she always knew that the man in front of her was Mo Zishi. Although she never said it out loud, she still secretly paid attention to his every move. She knew when he was promoted, when he made a contribution, and when he was admitted to the hospital. Because of this understanding, it slowly seeped into her bones. That's why she wouldn't believe it if she said she didn't have any feelings for Mo Zishi. But she had always stopped herself from paying attention to Mo Zishi. In fact, she repeatedly told herself that he wasn't hers and that he wouldn't belong to her. But the Mo Zishi that lived in her memories and other people's mouths was finally by her side. So what reason did she have to reject him? So she couldn't help but reach out her hand to respond to Mo Zishi by wrapping her arms around his neck. At this moment, Mo Zishi felt like he was transported back to that night 4 years ago. All he could think about right now was how he wanted to possess this woman and become deeply connected with her. The crucial moment arrived quickly, but Mo Zishi suddenly stopped and looked at Yao Anshi with uncertainty. Did you do it willingly this time? 4 years ago, I also did it willingly. Yao Anshi's eyes glistened as she replied Mo Zishi in a gentle voice. Mo Zishi couldn't control himself anymore as he buried himself deep into the warmth of her body. In an instant, the two of them hugged each other tightly. That night, there was no end to it. Mo Zishi displayed the stamina of a soldier as he did it over and over again without stopping. It was like he was addicted to it as he continued to devour Yao Anshi. The bone-devouring feeling was exactly the same as she remembered. It was so addictive that she couldn't stop. Originally, Yao Anshi was planning to return to the master bedroom after midnight, but after Mo Zishi's relentless demands, she had no choice but to give up. She knew that Xingzhe wasn't going to wake up. This man was like an unsatisfied beast, gnawing on her body over and over again, until the next day at daybreak. I don't want it anymore. Yao Anshi was out of energy and there wasn't a single part of her body that was fine. Mo Zishi stood up from the bed and carried Yao Anshi in his arms. He placed her in the bathroom and let her soak in the warm bathtub. Mo Zishi then looked back at the results of their battle. The originally clean and tidy bed was now an unsightly mess. How is this still a bedroom? This was simply a battlefield. After tidying up the bed, Mo Zishi returned to the bathroom to find Yao Anshi unconscious in the bathtub. He planned to carry her back to the master bedroom. However, Yao Anshi instinctively pushed him away. I don't have any energy left. Let me go. Of course I'm letting you go now. We'll continue tonight. He had endured for 4 years, searching for the feeling for 4 years. Now that he had finally found the result, how could he let it go so easily? Meanwhile, Yao Anshi fell asleep unconscious. Meanwhile, Mo Zishi helped her apply for an entire day off. After all, their Dr. Yao couldn't even get out of bed. Just thinking about the taste of last night, a smile blossomed on Mo Zishi's handsome face. This woman's body was really irresistible. Yao Anshi slept all the way until the afternoon. By the time she woke up, she found Mo Zishi playing a game with Xingzhe in the living room. How could he still be so energetic? Yao Anshi was a little annoyed. Are you hungry? Let's eat something first. As soon as Mo Zishi saw her wake up, he immediately ran into the kitchen to heat up some food for her and placed it on the dining table. Come and eat. I don't really feel like eating. I feel like throwing up. What's wrong? It's all because you don't know how to control yourself. Yao Anshi complained. After hearing this, Mo Zishi laughed. But I haven't had my fill yet. Tell me, what medicine should I take? I'll help you find it. I want to sleep. Yao Anshi noticed the look in Mo Zishi's eyes and realized that he hadn't had his fill yet. So, she quickly lay back down on the bed and closed her eyes to rest. By the time she woke up, it was already 10 p.m. This time, Mo Zishi directly placed the food on her bedside table and said, "Sit up. I'll feed you." Sorry, I was too much. So, you still know. Yao Anqi struggled to sit up and leaned against the headboard as she enjoyed Emozishi's service. I won't do anything tonight. You should get some rest. I'll be leaving again at 3 a.m. tomorrow. Emozishi promised as he fed Yao Anqi some soup. As Emozishi fed Yao Anqi soup, he assured her, I just want to tell you something from the bottom of my heart. You're telling the truth after sleeping with me for one night? Yao Anqi glared at him. Because I've realized something. Emozishi smiled at Yao Anqi. I've discovered my heart. I don't know how to explain this feeling to you, but, Anqi, I've realized that the person I've liked from the start has always been you. It's just you. Over the past 4 years, Chen Jingrong had been acting as Yao Anqi's character, but she had never truly entered Emozishi's heart. He simply couldn't understand it. It wasn't until Yao Anqi appeared that he realized that he only treated Chen Jingrong like a responsibility and treated her like it was normal. But when it came to her, she was simply a responsibility and nothing more. Over the past 4 years, he hadn't experienced the beauty of that night again. Until last night when he went crazy. Yao Anqi understood how Emozishi felt because she felt the same way. Before that, she didn't understand the complicated feelings she had towards Emozishi. But, as her memories unraveled, the feeling of liking him was unusually clear in her mind. I won't let you down. I will definitely be with you. Although we missed each other for 4 years, I will never let you go again. Yao Anqi nodded her head and leaned against Emozishi's chest. Fate was a strange thing. After going around in circles, they were back to square one. After the couple opened up their conversation, they finally felt like a couple. Although Emozishi only slept until 3 a.m. that night, when he woke up, he was reluctant to leave. This time, not only for his son, but also for the exhausted woman lying on the bed. He hadn't even left home yet, but he was already homesick. In a short period of time, Chen Jingrong stopped looking for Emozishi. She had already lost all face and lost her job. Although she was relieved that Yao Anqi had been kicked out of the hospital, the thought of Yao Anqi still being with Emozishi made her heart ache. She couldn't swallow this anger no matter what. Afterwards, she tried to find out which hospital Yao Anqi was at so she could wait for an opportunity to make a move. Since she couldn't have Emozishi, no one else could either. Chapter 1239. Yao Anqi rested at home for an entire day before returning to work at the hospital. But her legs were still weak. But she was glad that she and Emozishi finally understood each other and no longer had Chen Jingrong standing between them. As she thought back to the night before, Yao Anqi's face couldn't help but turn red. She never expected Emozishi to be so insatiable and insatiable. This man may look like a bright and righteous person, but when it came to women, he was just an ordinary person. Afterwards, Yao Anqi received a phone call from Tongning asking her to take Xingxia home for dinner. Thinking about how she hadn't been to Hyatt Regency since moving, Yao Anqi happily agreed. After all, Emozian really wanted to see Xingxia. Even if she didn't see him for a few days, it was enough to make her heart ache. So, after work, Yao Anqi took Xingxia to Hyatt Regency. At this time, Chen Jingrong was at Beijing Hospital, carefully looking for information about Yao Anqi. She wanted to know her schedule and habits because she thought of a perfect way to drive a wedge between Yao Anqi and Emozishi. She still remembered how she was taken away by a man at the bar that night. Afterwards, she went to the hotel to check the surveillance footage and saw that the man that took her to the hotel had a similar physique to Emozishi. This was the main reason why she mistook him for Emozishi that night. Since Yao Anqi and Emozishi were together because of their child, they definitely didn't have any feelings for each other. On top of this, Chen Jingrong simply had to use a little trick to break them apart. If worst came to worst, they would both die together. With this plan in mind, Chen Jingrong looked around for the man that took her out that night. It had to be said that the man was a gentleman and didn't take advantage of her. So, she went to the bar again. Yao Anqi had no idea what Chen Jingrong was up to. She simply returned to Hyatt Regency with her son. When Tongning saw Yao Anqi enter the Emo family home so naturally, she guessed that her relationship with Emozishi had changed. Oh God, my little Xingxing. I've missed you so much. Emozian immediately ran over to hug Xingzhe as soon as she saw him. Auntie. Xingzhe cooperatively called out to Emozian. Emozian was so happy that she almost flew into the sky. My precious, I love you so much. Tongning pulled Yao Anqi to sit down and asked her how she was doing. Yao Anqi thought to herself. The Emo family didn't seem to know that they had already registered their marriage. Thinking that Emo Zishi would personally return to introduce himself to her, Yao Anqi did not mention that they were already married. Instead, she briefly explained how Xingzhe was doing and how he was doing. But Tongning was a sharp-eyed person. How could he not see the clear marks on Yao Anqi's neck? She was happy that their relationship had made a breakthrough and hoped that Yao Anqi would sincerely accept everyone in the Emo family. Afterwards, Tongning invited Yao Anqi into the study room. She then pulled out a ring from a drawer and handed it to Yao Anqi. As soon as I found out about your existence, I started preparing this accessory. I was just wondering when I could give it to you, but now I realize the time is ripe. Auntie. Do you still call me Auntie? Tongning gestured for her to look at her neck. Yao Anqi immediately understood what Tongning was trying to say, so she covered her neck in embarrassment. I've long treated you as part of my family, as my wife. The fact that you and Zishi are together is what the entire family wants to see. After speaking, Tongning placed the jewelry box in Yao Anqi's hands. From now on, no matter what happens, I hope that you can trust Zishi. He's not a reckless child. Yao Anqi looked at the jewelry in her hands and sighed. Mom, Zishi and I have indeed registered our marriage, and we've already made it clear that I want to live a happy life with him. So, I don't really care about these worldly possessions. I know that this is a gift from you, but with my identity, I can't wear jewelry, so I hope you can take it back. This is a gift from a mother-in-law to a daughter-in-law. You can't reject it. Tongning was genuinely happy that Emo Zishi's incident had ended in the best possible outcome. So, she immediately announced to the Emo family that she had a daughter-in-law and that Emo Zian had a sister-in-law. While at the Emo family home, Yao Anqi was indeed relaxed and happy. After all, the Emo family home made her feel warmer and warmer. So, she felt that she was quite lucky. After all, God still left the best things for her. But, because Emo Zishi liked Xingzhe so much, Yao Anqi agreed to let him stay at her grandmother's home for a few days. Emo Zian was so happy that she threw a tantrum in the middle of the night to buy all sorts of toys for her nephew. Yao Anqi didn't have to worry, so she decided to stay the night at the Emo family home. She stayed in the room that Emo Zishi used to live in. It was filled with his childhood memories. Late that night, Yao Anqi received a phone call from Emo Zishi as she lay in bed. Guess where I am? Mom told me that you're at Hyatt Regency. I'm lying on your bed right now. There are a lot of model planes in your room. Anqi, can you not mention the word bed in front of me? Emo Zishi pleaded helplessly. What's wrong? Because I miss you, and I miss your body, Emo Zishi said straightforwardly. Yao Anqi's face immediately turned red. I never thought you were so indecent before. Now I know. Unfortunately, it's too late. Emo Zishi laughed. It's a shame that I can't go home. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you get away with this. I'm going to bed, Yao Anqi said in embarrassment as she wasn't happy with Emo Zishi's flirtatious words. Okay. My wife is going to bed, so I can't disturb her any longer. Hurry and sleep. I'll be back in a few days. Yao Anqi felt like she was in a dream. After quite some time, she finally said to Emo Zishi, Actually, I missed you too. Really? Emo Zishi was excited. After speaking, Yao Anqi hung up the phone and covered her head with her hands. She smelled the familiar scent on the bed and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Emo Zishi was also teased by his comrade. I can't believe a phone call with your sister-in-law could be so cheesy. Emo Zishi put away his phone and glared at his comrade. You'll find out once you get married. Does it taste good? Chapter 1240. Thinking about that night, Emo Zishi couldn't help but nod his head. Unforgettable. In the past, he didn't like doing things like this because he believed that men should be rational animals. But ever since that night when he was entangled with Yao Anchi, he realized that all his restraint was bullshit. If he was given 3 days off, he would definitely choose to spend all 3 days in bed. By the way, I've made some progress on the matter you asked me to help you with. But who offended you, young Master Mo, to the point that you have to scheme against them? His comrade asked. Sometimes an eye for an eye. Emozishi laughed as he patted his comrade on the shoulder. Thanks, bro. That's all. The Chin family used their background to oppress Yao Anchi, so he wasn't going to let his wife suffer for nothing. Did they think that his wife was so easy to bully? He simply obtained some evidence against Father Chun and asked his comrade to report him. Since the Chun family started it, he couldn't be blamed. As Yao Anchi lay on Emozishi's pillow and covered herself with his blanket, she felt like Emozishi was right next to her. That night, she slept peacefully. After leaving Hyatt Regency, Yao Anchi headed straight for the hospital. As Xingzhe was staying at the Mo family, she no longer had any pressure, so she was a lot gentler than before. But she had no idea that, over the past few days, Chun Jingrong had already prepared an exciting show for her. She had already found the man from the bar. In fact, he had already made a deal with Chun Jingrong. It was obvious that the man didn't lack money, he simply wanted Chun Jingrong. It was that simple. That day at the hotel, he didn't go berserk because he wanted Chun Jingrong to be willing. Now that he had a deal, if he helped Chun Jingrong put on an act, Chun Jingrong would agree to be with him. So he wasn't going to miss out on this opportunity. Even though Chun Jingrong still held on to the hope that she could get back together with Emozishi. But the arrow was already knocked and it had to be fired. Before Emozishi returned, Chun Jingrong wanted to carry out her plan as soon as possible. So that night, Chun Jingrong dressed the man up so that he looked exactly like Emozishi. From the back, it was impossible to tell them apart. She asked the man to stand by the side door that Yao Anchi passed every day and pretended to be waiting for her. But just as Yao Anchi was about to appear, Chun Jingrong suddenly pounced over and yelled, "Zishi, I really can't lose you. Don't abandon me. Okay? I know you still love me in your heart." At first, the man did not move, but after a brief struggle, he ended up hugging Chun Jingrong. Afterwards, Chun Jingrong wrapped her arms around the man and kissed him. Like that, the couple kissed passionately in front of Yao Anchi. "Zishi, if you love me, then come with me." The man did not say a word as he held onto Chun Jingrong's hand and they left the hospital together. Yao Anchi stared at the back of the figure in disbelief. She did resemble Emozishi, but Emozishi did not call to pick her up. So, even though she believed her, she still reminded herself that it was all a trick played by Chun Jingrong. Afterwards, Yao Anchi called Emozishi, but no one picked up. Was that man really Emozishi? She couldn't believe it. After all, Emozishi had just called her last night and told her that he missed her. So, there was no way it could have been Emozishi, but what if Emozishi still had feelings for Chun Jingrong? Because of this, Yao Anchi was extremely disappointed. After returning home, she didn't have a single night of peace. The next day, Yao Anchi looked exhausted as she heard a colleague say to her, "Dr. Yao, last night, after I got off work, I ran into my brother-in-law. He was carrying another woman to a hotel room. Did you know about this? Are you sure it's him? Although I've only seen him once, I can't be wrong about that back view," the nurse said. "You need to plan ahead and get to the bottom of things. Otherwise, you'll be kept in the dark. It's not easy being a woman these days." After hearing this, Yao Anchi felt a little upset. But her rationality reminded her that even if someone else ran into him, it didn't mean it was Emozishi. So, she decided to give Emozishi a phone call. But before she could get through, Chun Jingrong arrived at the hospital. From the looks of it, she was beaming with joy and full of energy, completely different from when she caused a scene at the military hospital. "Although I feel sorry for you, I'm sorry, I've made up with Zishi." After speaking, Chun Jingrong pulled out a photo of the sleeping man and showed it to Yao Anchi. "I know you can't accept this, but Yao Anqi, Zishi and I have been together for 4 years. How could we just break up like this? Zishi said that he will deal with you and the child as soon as possible and marry me. So, I suggest that if you don't want to lose too badly, you should back out. Yao Anqi held back her sadness and looked at Chun Jingrong. If you're not here to see a doctor, then leave. I don't have time to entertain you. It's going to happen sooner or later. Why are you avoiding it? Chun Jingrong, do you think I should trust Mo Zishi or you? Yao Anqi asked Chun Jingrong. I don't believe a single word you said today. You don't believe me? Then, just you wait for Zishi to personally come and settle things with you. After speaking, Chun Jingrong tried to stand up, but Yao Anqi held her back. Do you know why I doubt the credibility of your words? Because Mo Zishi and I are already married. After hearing this, Chun Jingrong turned and looked at Yao Anqi in shock. But, Yao Anqi continued, he wants to marry you? Chun Jingrong, aren't you afraid that I'll sue you for breaking up a military marriage? If you're not afraid of going to jail, then I don't care. But, if you really want a divorce, tell Mo Zishi to come and talk to me. Chun Jingrong never expected that Mo Zishi and Yao Anqi would actually register their marriage. She never expected. Whether everything you've said is true or not, it's easy to verify. Chun Jingrong, what do you gain by doing this? As soon as Mo Zishi appears, I'll know the truth. Did you really think that you could hurt me? Yao Anqi remained calm and was not affected by Chun Jingrong. Chun Jingrong was simply too stupid. Did she think that she would fall for such a simple trap? Yao Anqi was indeed uncomfortable. But, even if she believed Mo Zishi, she would still personally ask him and force him to admit it. But, she couldn't even get through to him on the phone, so what was there to talk about? Chapter 1241. Seeing the ugly expression on Chun Jingrong's face, Yao Anqi had no choice but to educate her. If I were you, I would have carefully planned everything out. I would have calculated every possibility and carefully calculated every possible change. What you're doing is an insult to everyone's intelligence. After speaking, Yao Anqi called the security at the door and asked Chun Jingrong to leave. Chun Jingrong was acting like a child playing house because she wanted to disgust Yao Anqi. But, in reality, what benefit did she get out of it? Why would he marry you? There's no love between the two of you. Who said there's no love between the two of us? Yao Anqi lifted her head and said as Chun Jingrong was being led away, You've been a substitute for 4 years. Don't you know how deep Zishi's feelings for me are? He simply thinks I'm you. You're lying. Chun Jingrong yelled. How could you make Zishi say something like this? Chun Jingrong, you've been clinging to me all the way from the military hospital. Have you really lost your mind? Did you really think that you could easily drive a wedge between us? You don't believe that Zishi has changed and you keep telling yourself that he still has feelings for you. This is all because you're too afraid to face yourself and the truth. Chun Jingrong was forced into a corner and her thoughts were exposed. She couldn't accept it, so she tried everything she could to vent her anger. Just like you said. But you need to admit that Zishi still has feelings for me. After all, we've been together for 4 years. Yao Anqi couldn't be bothered to respond to Chun Jingrong. At this time, the security guards entered Yao Anqi's office. Chun Jingrong was escorted out of the office with a face full of dirt. She knelt on the floor and cried. At this time, the man that helped her put on an act suddenly stretched out his hand. Since that's the case, why don't you marry me? If Zishi still has feelings for you, he will come back for you. Are you willing to take the risk? Don't you just want to sleep with me? I'll sleep with you, but I won't marry you. Even if I die, I'll wait for Zishi. Chun Jingrong was stubborn. In fact, she was so stubborn that it was annoying. But the man did not give up. Previously, I did want your body. But now, not only do I want your body, I want your heart too. Chun Jingrong sneered as she stood up and yelled, You're crazy. With that, she dried her tears and left. Meanwhile, Yao Anqi didn't believe Chun Jingrong's words, but she didn't feel comfortable either. After all, Chun Jingrong kept causing trouble for her. No one liked being harassed like this and affecting their work and life. But, at the same time, she understood that if Mozishi stepped in, Chun Jingrong would be even more relentless. She had no choice. When Mozishi returned, she could only ignore him for 2 days. What kind of ruthless character did they provoke? At that moment, Mozishi was on an important mission, so he had no idea that Yao Anchi was being tormented by Chun Jingrong. But, 2 days later, a group of men dressed in black arrived at the Chun family home and sealed it up. In fact, they even took Father Chun away. This time, Chun Jingrong suddenly panicked. She knew what was going on. If someone with her father's status could be taken away, what other consequences could there be? Chun Jingrong had no idea that Mozishi was trying to get revenge for his wife. Of course, she had no one to turn to at the moment. All her friends and family were trying to protect themselves. So, the only person she could turn to was the man from the bar. After all, he didn't lack money. "Let's make another deal. What do you want me to put on this time?" the man asked as he glanced at her. "I want money. A lot of money. Money that I can use to bail my father out," Chun Jingrong said as she sobbed. "Fine, but I have one condition. You must marry me," the man said firmly. "I won't accept any other offer." How could Chun Jingrong agree to this? "You're taking advantage of my misfortune. Just pretend that I am," the man shrugged. "Otherwise, you can go look for someone else." Chun Jingrong did not agree as she left in tears. She wanted to look for Mozishi, because the only person she could look for was Mozishi. By the time Mozishi left the special forces, it was already 4 days later. He immediately rushed home, but he did not see his wife and son. Xingzhe was still at the Mo family home, so Mo Zian couldn't bear to let him go. But what about Yao Anchi? A moment later, Yao Anchi returned home with a paper bag. As soon as she saw the man, she did not look him in the eye. Mozishi was a little confused. Just as he walked up to Yao Anchi and hugged her, she stopped him. "You've already booked a hotel room with Chun Jingrong near the hospital. Why are you hugging me?" Mozishi was a little surprised as he looked at her blankly. "I went on a special mission. The entire special forces can testify for me." Yao Anchi knew that he was being wrongly accused, but she still felt uncomfortable. So, she explained everything that happened a few days ago to Mozishi without leaving out a single word. After Mozishi heard everything, he sighed and hugged Yao Anchi as he apologized. "It's all my fault. I'm sorry, Anchi. I'm not blaming you. I'm just a little annoyed," Yao Anchi replied as she hugged Mozishi. "Although I can't help but be angry, now that you're back safe and sound, how could I continue to be rude to you? But, I heard that the Chun family is currently in trouble. Does this have anything to do with you?" Father Chun asked for it. "It has nothing to do with anyone else. But, Chun Jingrong will definitely come looking for you," Yao Anchi said. "She's currently at a dead end. Who do you think she'll turn to for help?" "I can't help her," Mozishi replied coldly. "Since you were able to force my wife to leave the hospital with pressure, you should have been prepared for this from the start. That's why you ended up like this. In that case, what do you plan to do with Chun Jingrong? She won't believe a single word I say. She insists that I'm lying to her. I can see her, but I want to be with you," Mozishi said firmly. "Right now, I'm being honest with you and there's nothing to hide. Most importantly, I don't want you to misunderstand." Yao Anchi sighed and nodded her head. "Then, let's set a time." As soon as Yao Anchi finished speaking, Mozishi knew that they were done talking business. So, he lifted his wife in his arms and carried her into the bedroom. After thinking about it for so long and missing Yao Anchi for so long, only by returning to Yao Anchi's side would he feel alive. So, his heart started to beat like crazy. Chapter 1242. Yao Anchi didn't expect him to be so impatient, so she quickly said, "It's not convenient for me?" Mozishi suddenly stopped praising Junyan and lost all his anger. But Yao Anchi comforted, "It's okay. I can help you." In reality, Emozishi didn't have to be ruthless towards Chun Jingrong. After all, they had been together for 4 years. Even if they didn't have feelings for each other, they were still close friends. Emozishi didn't want to go that far. If the Chun family hadn't pressured him, he would have kept the best side of Chun Jingrong in his heart. Most importantly, the Chun family had laid their hands on his wife first. Due to his limited vacation time, Emozishi wanted to spend more time with Yao Anqi. So, he wanted to resolve the matter with Chun Jingrong as soon as possible. Chun Jingrong was happy and excited that he agreed to meet up with her. But, when they arrived at the meeting place, she realized that Emozishi had brought Yao Anqi with him. The couple held hands and looked unusually intimate. Chun Jingrong endured the pain in her heart and stood up to welcome Emozishi. "Zishi, you're here." Emozishi did not immediately sit down. Instead, he pulled out a chair for Yao Anqi and sat down beside her. He then said in a deep voice, "I originally wanted to leave you with some dignity, but you didn't seem to appreciate it. I'm not going to talk to you about how you slandered me for cheating on you. Jingrong, since we've met today, let's make everything clear. I hope there will never be a need to keep in touch again." Chun Jingrong's expression didn't look good. In fact, she looked a little pale. "I'm looking for you because of my father. My father has been arrested." "I know," Emozishi replied. "At most, your father will be fired from his position. But he won't be jailed and his life won't be in danger. So you don't need to worry." After hearing this, Chun Jingrong finally relaxed. She then asked, "Are you and Yao Anqi married?" "Yes." Emozishi nodded. "Did you get married because you had a child?" "We got married because we had to. The misunderstanding from 4 years ago caused us to miss each other. But in the end, I understood my own heart. Jingrong, things between us are over. You don't need to waste your time on me because I will never look back. You have such a beautiful life. You should find your own happiness. Continuing to cling to the past won't do you any good. Once upon a time, I didn't want to associate you with ugliness, but I also hope that you respect my choice. Especially Angie. Apart from me, you owe her. Do you know that? Because of your selfishness, she was a nameless single mother for 4 years. Of course, I'm also responsible. I failed both of you. But I have a clear conscience about my feelings for you. Now, I just want to spend the rest of my life loving Angie. Do you understand, then?" Emozishi explained patiently to Chun Jingrong. "I didn't want to see you because I felt that since we've broken up, there's no need to hold on to each other and embarrass each other. So, please let us go. I also hope that today will be the last time we meet. I can't guarantee what I'll do if you do anything to hurt Angie again." Chun Jingrong understood Emozishi's words. To be exact, she had always been a joke. And the person that turned her into a joke wasn't someone else, but herself. If she hadn't been so obsessed with lying by Emozishi's side, perhaps things would have been different. You don't have to sing praises of the greatness of your relationship in front of me. I just feel that I've been a fool from start to finish. I thought that I was very important, but I've really been deceiving myself. Emozishi, it's your loss for giving up on me." After speaking, Chun Jingrong stood up and left the cafe in tears. However, neither Emozishi nor Yao Anqi comforted her because they knew there was no need. "I just hope that she can reconsider her life. Let's go home." Emozishi held onto Yao Anqi's hand as he stood up from his seat. As the couple left the cafe, Emozishi couldn't help but lean over to Yao Anqi's ear and ask, "When are you going to be free?" "I'll be free when you're gone," Yao Anqi replied with a smile. Xingzhe was currently at the Emo family home, so it was the perfect time for the couple to develop their relationship. But they couldn't do anything. Because of this, Emozishi felt terrible. But even so, he wasn't going to joke around with Yao Anqi's health. After all, he still had a lot of time in his life. There was no need to rush. After Chun Jingrong left the cafe, she headed to the bar to drink. She wanted to numb herself with alcohol, but unfortunately, the man stopped her. "Why did you get yourself so drunk this time? Why do you care?" Chun Jingrong laughed as she cried and mumbled to herself, This is karma. I did something shameful 4 years ago, so I ended up like this. I'm a slut. No, not only am I a slut, I'm also stupid. I thought I was important to Emozishi, but I'm just a substitute for Yao Anshi. Emozishi has always liked the woman he slept with. He thinks I'm the one he slept with. Ha ha ha, I wonder which one of us is stupid. As Chun Jingrong swayed left and right, the man immediately reached out to catch her. I already told you, if you marry me, I can help you make Emozishi regret. Regret? How could he possibly regret? If I say he can, then he can. After speaking, the man carried Chun Jingrong in his arms and headed back to the hotel they stayed at last time. This time, Chun Jingrong wasn't completely drunk, but she no longer cared about her body. If something like this could really make both men and women happy, then it didn't matter who she did it with. So she accepted her fate and closed her eyes. But she had no idea that the man lying on top of her was the hottest male model in Beijing. Mo Ting's son abandoned his ex-girlfriend to fool around with a mistress. As soon as news of this got out, Yao Anshi would no longer be able to live in peace, however. He didn't know why he would do something so risky and offend the Mo family for the sake of the evil woman in his arms. Perhaps birds of a feather flock together. But sometimes some people were like poison. One look at them and one look at them would make you addicted to them. Chapter 1243. After returning home, Emozishi hugged Yao Anshi and said beside her ear, "Let's go pick up our son tomorrow and take him out to play. What do you think?" Yao Anshi looked at Emozishi and hugged him back as she nodded her head. "Perfect. Our family hasn't gone out to play yet. Mr. Mo, I need to go to work. In that case, I'll take Xingxia out to play. Tonight, my son and I will come pick you up." Yao Anshi nodded her head before she said mysteriously to Emozishi, "Actually, I'm almost clean." Emozishi's eyes lit up as he hugged Yao Anshi. "Are you teasing me on purpose?" Yao Anshi wrapped her arms around Emozishi's neck and buried her head in his chest. She knew what was about to happen between the two of them, but she had to admit that she also desired this man. As time went on, she would also miss his body. Afterwards, Yao Anshi felt herself being placed on the bed as her body sank into the soft mattress. Emozishi's handsome face grew closer and clearer. From the passionate look in Emozishi's eyes, Yao Anshi could clearly sense his feelings for her. Slowly, their clothes were thrown onto the floor one after another. Their naked bodies were pressed together without a single gap. During their passionate moment, Emozishi hugged Yao Anshi and repeatedly murmured her name in her ear, expressing his love. Afterwards, they moved from the bedroom to the living room and then to the bathroom. As she lay on her deathbed, Yao Anshi felt regret. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have told this man because he had no control at all. Like this, the couple spent the entire night tangling together until the next morning. Although it was uncomfortable, Yao Anshi insisted on getting out of bed and going to work, even though the way she walked was a little weird. That night, Chun Jingrong enjoyed herself under the man at the bar. Although she couldn't help but call out Emozishi's name during the passionate moment, after seeing the man on top of her, Chun Jingrong understood herself even better. 4 years of love turned out to be a joke. In fact, it was a joke that she created herself. In fact, she couldn't even blame anyone. The next morning, Chun Jingrong woke up in the man's arms. She suddenly felt disgusted with herself as she quickly put on her clothes. The man sat up and looked at her. "Do you regret it?" "Since I've already done it, I won't regret it," Chun Jingrong replied confidently. "I haven't officially introduced myself. My surname is Li and my name is Xingyuan. I am a popular male model." After speaking, the man stood up from the bed and pressed Chun Jingrong against the cold wall, trapping her between his arms. "Perhaps you regret everything that happened last night, but for me, you promised to marry me, so you have to keep your promise." "I agree." Li Xingyuan nodded playfully. "Out of protection for my fiancé, I will also help you take revenge." "Strange. You are a male model. How could you not let go of a woman like me?" There should be a lot of resources around you that you can play with. Before I met you, I was. Li Shengyuan smiled. You seem to have a special attraction to me. I don't know what's going on either. Chun Jingrong thought for a moment and nodded her head in resignation. Since things have already come to this, what other choice do I have? Let's get married. I'm going to head home first. Seeing that Chun Jingrong had agreed, Li Shengyuan nodded and let her go. As soon as Chun Jingrong left, Li Shengyuan contacted the media to expose Mo Zishi and Yao Anqi's relationship. Back in the day, Tongning and Ting were so powerful in the entertainment industry. Even now, with so many newcomers, everyone still respected these two kings and queens. But what if their child was involved in a scandal? Soon, an article titled "Abandoned Girlfriend of 4 Years and Cheated on Single Mother. Tongning's son has gone too far," was posted online. It didn't take long before the article went viral on the internet. The content of the article was, of course, about how Mo Zishi had abandoned Chun Jingrong and how he had an affair with a single mother. The content was vivid and full of twists and turns. In the article, Chun Jingrong even committed suicide for Mo Zishi and carried his child. As soon as a false accusation like this was released, the public didn't care if it was true or not because they simply wanted to see gossip. This was especially true for this kind of content that could be both true and false. After it spread like wildfire, it was hard for others to verify it. Even if someone wanted to help Mo Zishi prove his innocence, there was nothing they could do. I can't believe that Tongning's son would do such a despicable thing. It's been exposed, and people from the military have confirmed it. There was indeed such a farce. I wonder what Tongning is thinking right now. Tongning and Ting have always been the model couple in the industry. After all these years, they have never left each other. But when it comes to their son, everything changes. He's definitely a despicable person. He cheated and even caused someone to have an abortion. Below the article, netizens quickly followed it. The only reason why the incident received so much attention was because Mo Zishi was Tongning's son. Even though he had always kept a low profile, he was now placed on a pillar of shame. Originally, Mo Zishi wanted to take Xingxia out on a trip, but he ended up seeing the news at Hyatt Regency. He wasn't worried about himself. After all, he was a spoiled brat, so he was used to this. He was simply worried that Yao Anqi would be harassed at the hospital. Your Uncle Lu will soon find out who spread the news. You should go to the hospital to pick up Angie. Okay. After hearing from Tongning, Mo Zishi immediately grabbed his car keys and left. In the past, he never drove a sports car because he felt it was too high profile and there was no need to be so ostentatious. But now, the thought that Yao Anqi might be surrounded by people made him extremely anxious. So, he sped towards Beijing Hospital in his sports car. In the hospital, news didn't spread as quickly. After all, everyone was busy saving lives, so they didn't have time to gossip. But someone had nothing better to do. So, they found out that the young woman behind the incident was the new head of the ER, Yao Anqi. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Turns out, she stole someone's boyfriend and even had a child with her. How indecent. Can't you guys see that the ground floor is surrounded by reporters? From the looks of it, they're here for Dr. Yao. Yao Anqi ran around the ER, so she naturally noticed the reporters outside the hospital. However, before she had time to look at the news, soon, the reporters discovered her. She's over there? She's over there? Chapter 1244. Yao Anqi had no idea what was happening. She simply watched blankly as the reporters surrounded her and fought to get their microphones in front of her. Miss Yao, have you seen the post that's been circulating online? Miss Yao, someone has pointed out that you stole someone else's boyfriend to find a long-term meal ticket for yourself and your child. What do you think of this? Miss Yao. Wait. Yao Anqi interrupted the reporters and asked in confusion, I don't understand. Why are you all surrounding me? As soon as the reporters saw her expression, they could tell that she didn't know anything. So they pulled up the news and showed it to her. Did you know that, in the eyes of everyone in Beijing, you are a prostitute? After Yao Anqi saw the post, she took a deep breath. I can't believe someone actually believed a post like this. Isn't it your job as a reporter to find out the truth? Why is it that as soon as a post like this appears, there are people that stand on the high ground and question others in such an unfriendly manner? Are you guys above me? Or do you guys have evidence that I cheated? If you don't have anything, then why are you spouting nonsense? I want to know who gave you the right to do so. Miss Yao, are you saying that you don't want to admit to the contents of the post? The reporters asked as they raised their microphones. I don't want to embarrass everyone before I find out the truth. So, I won't be making any response, Yao Anqi replied calmly. Yao Anqi remained calm. In fact, her expression was calm. She wasn't afraid of being surrounded by the reporters. After all, she was married to Mo Zishi, so she knew that the Mo family spent most of their time in front of the media. In reality, Mo Zishi had already arrived at the hospital a minute ago. As soon as he saw Yao Anqi surrounded by reporters, he felt a little upset. So, he immediately wanted to run over and take her away. But, seeing Yao Anqi deal with the reporters naturally, Mo Zishi suddenly relaxed. Perhaps, this woman wasn't as weak as he imagined. The reporters did not let her go, but Yao Anqi did not respond. The reporters had no intention of letting her go, so they followed closely behind. At this time, Mo Zishi stepped out of his sports car and walked over to Yao Anqi's side. He wrapped his arm around her waist and said to the reporters, "We didn't want our private matter to be known by the entire city. But since someone has exposed it, we have nothing to fear. As for the truth of the matter, Hai Rui will step forward to clarify it. We will give you all the answers you want. So, I hope all the reporters don't make things difficult for us. We are not from the entertainment industry and don't like to be the center of attention. Especially my wife. She is now a doctor in the emergency department. She is always treating patients. If there is nothing else, please do not disturb her." To make Chun Jingrong feel a little better and not embarrass her, he immediately prepared a second post. Turn the situation around. This is the truth that you all want. The contents of the post were from Chun Jingrong's point of view. She explained that Mo Zishi had already broken up with her, and that Mo Zishi had never cheated on her or asked her to get an abortion. Although there was a bit of drama during their breakup, it had already calmed down. So, there was no evidence of an affair or a young married woman. The netizens weren't satisfied with a post like this. They were happily enjoying the show and were just about to get to the interesting part. Why did it suddenly disappear? He had already taken off his pants, yet he was showing this to others? Seeing this post, Chun Jingrong suddenly wanted to laugh. Mo Zishi wasn't as bad as she imagined. But it was already too late. Hai Rui had already found out about Li Xingyuan's actions and were prepared to deal with Mo Zishi. The previous post was trying to throw dirty water on the Mo family. I'm speechless. Let's just disperse. It's just a family matter. I might as well save my energy to watch a blockbuster. Of course, there were plenty of people that wanted to attack Chun Jingrong, but Chun Jingrong didn't care anymore. After all, she wasn't a part of the industry. But what she was worried about was whether Li Shangyuan would lose his job because of her. Indeed, since Li Shangyuan had offended the Mo family, there was no way he could bluff his way out of this. So, President Mo gave an order and informed the industry that Li Shangyuan's plans for the next year were completely destroyed. When Li Shangyuan was doing this, he had already mentally prepared himself for it. He knew what the consequences of offending the Mo family were. So, if he lost his job, then so be it. Chun Jingrong tried to find out where Li Shangyuan was, but all she could find was that he had been replaced by someone else. It wasn't easy for her to find out where Li Shangyuan lived, but she couldn't get in and didn't have his contact details. So, she had no choice but to head to the bar. As expected, Li Shangyuan was there, drinking on his own. Chun Jingrong walked over and snatched the glass from his hand. She then grabbed onto his collar and dragged him to the entrance of the bar. You lost your job? If it's gone, then it's gone. What else can I do? Li Shengyuan laughed. I'm already sick of it. Your job was lost because of me. Let's call it even. Your reputation is ruined because of me. Li Shengyuan laughed. Chun Jingrong, you're a bad woman, but I'm willing to do it for you. For some reason, Chun Jingrong suddenly felt emotional. She had chased after Mo Zishi for 4 years. But now, someone was actually following her around. It was a strange feeling, but it also made her feel a little guilty. I don't want you to lose your job. But, I've already lost it. Go get it back, Chun Jingrong said. As long as I can help you, I will. Help me? Don't get involved in the industry anymore. I don't need anyone's help because I'm fine. After speaking, Li Shengyuan turned to leave, but Chun Jingrong held on to him. Let go. I've already said everything I needed to say and we're done here. Why are you still clinging to me? I want to go to the hotel with you, Chun Jingrong said straightforwardly. I miss your body. Can't I? Li Shengyuan suddenly woke up and looked at Chun Jingrong passionately. He had to admit that he was also infatuated with Chun Jingrong's body. It was just one time, but he already missed her so much. You said it. Don't regret it. After speaking, the couple rushed to the hotel and hugged each other. Chun Jingrong realized that she didn't hate this feeling. But, at this time, Li Shengyuan was very clear-headed. If you still think of me as Mo Zishi, then I won't be accompanying you today. I saw Mo Zishi. Congratulations then. Chapter 1246. Li Shengyuan smiled bitterly with mixed emotions. He never expected that Chun Jingrong would turn around and look for him. A person like Chun Jingrong actually turned around to look for him. Don't run away, okay? Li Shengyuan's patience was broken, so he accepted his fate and kissed Chun Jingrong. When his desire was finally satisfied, he admitted that he really liked Chun Jingrong, even if she was so evil, scheming, and once liked someone so much. After a night of entanglement, both of them had a clear understanding of each other. Chun Jingrong understood. Mo Zishi's departure wasn't entirely because of love, but because of her pride and unwillingness. The next day, the two of them left the hotel, unaware that a large group of media was waiting for them in the parking lot. To begin with, Li Shengyuan was already on the verge of being blacklisted. Now, it was revealed that he had booked a room with a woman. His image was instantly destroyed to the lowest point. It wasn't easy for them to escape from the crowd of reporters. Chun Jingrong couldn't help but ask Li Shengyuan, "Were we caught on camera? What about you? Since I've already been banned, it doesn't matter if I get photographed." Li Shengyuan had already given up. Most importantly, if the female lead was someone else, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But she happened to be one of the main characters in Mo Zishi's incident. As a result, Li Shengyuan's situation became even more difficult as the internet was filled with criticism. What do you mean it doesn't matter? I won't let you be buried like this. Li Shengyuan did not take Chun Jingrong's words to heart, because he had his pride as a man. Although the two of them had talked it out last night and were entangled crazily, they still had to face reality when they woke up this morning. After Li Shengyuan escorted Chun Jingrong home, he left. To be exact, he completely disappeared. By the time Chun Jingrong realized something was wrong, Li Shengyuan had already disappeared for 3 days. Chun Jingrong couldn't find him anywhere. She couldn't even find a trace of him at the bar. At this moment, Chun Jingrong realized how much this man cared about his pride. But, when he first helped her, didn't he think about the consequences? Chun Jingrong felt that she had to try asking the Mo family. After all, in this industry, Mo Ting still had the final say. It had been like this for the past few decades. As long as Mo Ting gave the word, no one dared to disobey. Just like that, they tacitly banned Li Shengyuan. Because of this, Chun Jingrong went to look for Yao Anqi again. Of course, even though Yao Anqi felt helpless, she didn't avoid meeting him. "What do you want this time?" "I'm not here for Mo Zishi. I'm here for the man that helped me put on an act the other night. He was the one that posted a negative post online about you and Mo Zishi. Afterwards, he was banned from the entertainment industry and disappeared. That's why I came looking for you. The two of you are really birds of a feather, Yao Anqi commented. So what do you think I can help you with right now? I want to see Tongning. I know my request is a little overboard, but that man became like this because of me, so I need to give him an explanation. I also know you have no right to help me, so I'm simply asking you. I can promise you anything. After Yao Anqi heard this, she fell silent for a moment as she continued to write the medical records in her hands. I can help you, but my mother-in-law may not be willing to see you. As long as you're willing to help, it doesn't matter if you don't succeed or not. Chun Jingrong let out a sigh of relief. She knew that as long as Yao Anqi was willing, her chances would increase by a lot. You can leave now. Chun Jingrong did not stay to disturb Yao Anqi any longer. But, before she left, she said something from the bottom of her heart. I'm quite envious of you. Honestly, I'm also quite regretful. If I hadn't done what I did 4 years ago, the two of you would have gotten married and had a second child. Yao Anqi did not respond. To her, those assumptions weren't valid. Plus, even after 4 years, she still received what she deserved. Although God made her endure a lot of hardship, in the end, he didn't mistreat her. Afterwards, Yao Anqi gave Tongning a phone call. Mom. Anqi speak. Tongning was busy on the other side of the phone. Chun Jingrong came looking for me today because of the male model. She seems quite concerned about it and wants to ask you to give her a chance to meet with him. After hearing this, Tongning laughed. Your father asked for this. You should go look for him. Mom, this is what I'm thinking. If Chun Jingrong can actually walk out of her relationship with Zishi, then I'll give her my blessings. That's why I'm willing to pass on this message. I don't want to have anything more to do with her. After hearing this, Tongning nodded her head. I understand. Leave her hanging for a few more days. Don't worry about her. When the time comes, I'll send someone to look for her. Thank you, Mom. You're so kind to stand up for us. I know that you and Zishi have been exhausted from all this time. It's fine. Tongning comforted. From now on, the two of you should live a good life. If you run into any difficulties, just come home. Yao Anqi was extremely touched by Tongning's open-mindedness. Tongning had never asked for anything from her. All she wanted was for her and Zishi to be happy. This was the true meaning of a family. That night, Mo Zishi returned home from the special forces. After hearing about Chun Jingrong's situation, he could only praise his wife. You can't be heartless. I simply don't want Chun Jingrong to keep interrupting our lives. If she can walk out of this relationship, then it's not a bad thing for us to help her. Mo Zishi nodded his head and lifted Yao Anqi in his arms. I'm not in the mood to care about other people. All I can think about right now is you. Because of this, you keep handing Xingzhe to Xian. Xian is also very busy. What's she busy with? Although she's in charge of Hai Rui, it's been around for over 10 years. If she skips work every now and then, Dad will turn a blind eye to it. Plus, she really likes Xingzhe. After speaking, Mo Zishi removed Yao Anqi's beige clothes and touched her warm body. You're really, ugh. Yao Anqi's final words were swallowed by Mo Zishi. At a time like this, was there even a need to say anything else? The Special Forces was a place filled with men. They either trained all day or went on hot-blooded missions. So what did young men think about the most? Of course, they thought about returning home and getting intimate with their wives. There was nothing better than this. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.